All right. Welcome everyone to the Thursday, March 18th, 2021 meeting of the Humboldt County Planning Commission. And as usual, in accordance with Executive Order N-29-20, the Planning Commission meeting will be held virtually. You can go on the county website and get directions as to how to join us by either computer or telephone. And we expect there will be a lot of people tonight, so we suggest you get in early on it because I understand there's a limit to the number of people. I don't quite understand what that means, but I was told that by the technical guy. So anyhow, with that, I will call this meeting to order and ask you all to please join me in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would ask Laura for a roll call. Commissioners present.
Alan Bongio,
Present.
Thomas Mulder,
Let's see.
Thomas Mulder, he is. Noah Levy,
You mentioned he might be late.
he might be late.
Yeah, he may be here as late as 6:30.
Mike Newman,
Present.
Peggy O'Neill, Brian Mitchell,
Present.
Melanie McGaver,
Here.
Laura, it appears we have a quorum. These four, I think we may have a fifth.
I'm here. I just didn't have any sound before.
All right. Thank you, Peggy. So we have a quorum and can move on. Director, any agenda modifications?
We do not have agenda modifications at this time. We would perhaps propose some at a later date or a later time, depending on what happens with the consent calendar. There are a number of supplementals that have been added. Those are shown in Legistar.
Thank you. Next is public comment. This is a time when the public can speak on any item that is not on tonight's agenda. So, over here, attendees. Looks like we have one hand up. Go ahead, Rich. Unmute yourself, *6. Are you there, Rich? Okay. It doesn't seem to be responding. I'll move to the next speaker is Daryl Cotton. Go ahead.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Basically, I'm here in San Diego looking statewide at the water consumption rates of these licensed cannabis cultivation sites. And under CEQA, it's usually a self-stated value. And when I looked at the Arcata project, your project number 12255, I was asked to do an analysis on it. So my background is energy and water savings.
Sir?
Yes.
This is for non-agenda items. And
got it.
If you're going to talk about that project, that's
okay. Then I'll hold off until we're there. Sorry, I didn't realize that.
Much. All right, appreciate it. All right, Janet Morris. And then we'll come back. Go ahead, Janet.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. My husband and I are planning.
We just lost you.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay,
I hear you now.
I'm on this now because, will the planning commissions always be set up like this? We're having one in late May, and I don't see anybody's pictures up above. I'm not used to these Zoom meetings. Is this how we'll have, if we do a presentation, how will we be able to do it if we have a hearing?
The director would like to address that.
Ms. Morris, if you've got an application in, why don't you contact the planner and we can help you understand what the protocols are.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
You. Are there any more public commenters? Give it a second. Seeing none, I will close the public comment and come back to the next section, which is section E of the agenda, the consent agenda. And I want to make a note that we are adding item G in the agenda to the consent agenda. So item G will be the last item that we'll go through when we do the consent agenda now. So with that, we'll go like we always do through each item. The first ones are all action summaries. So the first item is review and approval of the January 7th, 2021 action summary. Is there anybody who would like this item pulled? Seeing none, we'll leave that on consent. Item number 2 is review and approval of the January 21st, 2021 action summary. Anybody care to have this item pulled? Seeing none, I will leave that on consent. Item number 3 is review and approval of the February 4th, 2021 action summary. Anybody? Seeing none, I'll leave that on consent. Item number 4 is review and approval of the February 18th, 2021 action summary. Anybody care to have this pulled? That looks good. Leave that on. And item number 5 is review and approval of the March 4th, 2021 action summary. Anybody?
Mr. Chairman, this is Brian. I just have a quick correction on that one. It looks like every time they're writing square feet, they're putting FT2, but they're not putting it in the correct font. And on all the other ones, they write out square feet, like in words. So if they could just go through and make that consistent, or make the squared the appropriate font, it'll be easier to read.
All right. Director's nodding, will do. All right. So with that, we'll leave that on consent. Item number 6 is the Keith Forbes extension and modification of a coastal development and conditional use permit at 5667 South Broadway, Spruce Point area. Is there anybody who wishes to have this item pulled? Seeing none, I will leave this on consent. Item number 7 is the Humboldt County Collective Conditional Use Permit modification at 1662 Suite A, Myrtle Avenue, Eureka area. Does anybody care to have this one pulled? Seeing none, I will leave that on consent. And then the item number 8 has already been asked by the director, or no, oh, I'm sorry, misunderstood that. Item number 8, the Maple Creek Ranch Corp conditional use permit and zoning clearance in the Corbell area. I see a hand up, so that item will be pulled. And then we will move, that was the last items that were on the consent, with the exception of item G, which was a continued consent item. and it's the Renewable Properties LLC Hatchery Road Solar Project. I'm sorry. I apologize. I had pages stuck together. It is the Crossland Management LLC conditional use permit at 1910 Borden Road, Neeland, Lone Star Junction area. Does anybody have concerns on this issue? Seeing none, we will leave that on consent. So the consent calendar would consist of items 1 through 7 and item G. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So
I'll
moved.
motion to approve the consent calendar, 1 through 7 and G.
I'm not sure who was first, but we'll go with Melanie was the motion. Who was the other person? Brian? Okay, Brian, you'll be the second on this one.
Perfect.
Any discussion on it? All right, I would ask Laura then for a roll call vote.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Yes.
Noah Levy. Oh, not yet. Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peggy O'Neill,
Yes,
Brian Mitchell,
Yes.
Melanie McGavern.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries. So the next would be item F, which is items that were pulled from the consent agenda. We only had one hand come up, and it appeared to be CDFW. If we're hoping that we don't have to continue these because we have such a large number of items on the agenda tonight, and the one big one that we know a lot of people are going to be here. So if CDFW could just, if they have a simple question or something, since no commissioners wanted to pull this one, if staff can answer your questions, we'll have a second vote and put that on consent. If not, we will continue it to a future date of April 1st meeting. So if Greg, if you would address staff on that one with your question. Mike?
Yeah, I
Go ahead.
need to abstain on this and put myself out.
Abstain.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
So
Thank you.
I will leave the meeting right now.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. And Greg O'Connell from CDF. I apologize. I said California Fish and Wildlife. It says CDF. Oh, there's the W now. Okay. The W wasn't showing up. So go ahead, Greg.
Thanks. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
I appreciate it. Okay, so my name is Greg O'Connell. I'm an environmental scientist with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. And the primary thing that I wanted to address for this project were the botanical surveys. The department submitted a comment letter on the mitigated negative declaration. And there's been a little bit of follow-up back and forth with the county on this since then. You may have received a supplemental information on this topic. The short of it is the botanical survey for this project does not follow the Department of Fish and Wildlife's botanical survey protocol. And we'd like to see larger botanical survey periods. There was just a very short period that was surveyed in July and August of 2019 with a recommended follow-up survey for just one plant species and only within road sections of the project area. And the Department of Fish and Wildlife thinks that this is inadequate and would like to see full botanical surveys for this project area in accordance with department protocol.
Yes, go ahead, Director.
So there is a bit of a disagreement on this. The biologists who prepared the report did identify that they prepared it in accordance with the appropriate protocols. And CDFW is finding that they did not. This is one of those where we feel like it's a bit of a situation, and perhaps it would be worth just continuing this to allow us to continue to meet with the applicant. I don't know if, and CDFW, and see if this can be resolved. If additional protocol surveys are going to be required, this won't be heard for the next several months.
So we would not continue this to the April 1st.
Correct. It could be continued to a date uncertain.
Certain. Okay, is that what you would like to see happen?
Well, no, I believe the applicant has done everything that they've been asked to do in providing the information. We got this information a little bit late. CDFW was not happy with it. And so it put us in a bit of a difficult situation to try to pull this back when this has been in the queue. It was circulated, it was reviewed. We got early comments from CDFW and thought that we were moving towards the finish line.
Okay.
If I could just correct real quickly, sorry, Director Ford, through the chair.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. We did reach out to CDFW in almost 1 year ago and asked for their input on this project. They did not respond at all to our requests. And so, we made the determination that the botanical survey, which was completed by a well-qualified local botanist, was adequate for the CEQA purpose. And, that was the botanist who had gone out on the site, who had looked at all of the plant species on the site. And in his estimation, felt that he was able to identify whether any sensitive plant species would have been on that property. And so we move forward with that understanding. CDFW, I believe, now disagrees.
All right, thank you, Cliff. Okay, we've got two other hands up. I'm gonna try and see if we can move this thing along. No commissioners had a problem with this one, so I'm gonna go to the next caller, which is Marissa Day. *6 to unmute
Hi.
yourself.
Okay.
Go ahead, Marissa.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I joined the meeting late. Are we, am I able to speak about the cannabis grow yet, or is that further in the meeting?
Which one?
Yeah.
The industrial cannabis grow on the west side of Arcata.
No, you're in the wrong one. That'll be later.
Okay. All right, thank you. And I unmute by *6.
Yes. The next caller is Darren, please.
Hey, this is Darren Ferreira. Yeah, sorry, I had the same question that Melissa had also. So when is that going to be on here?
It's a few items down, I think, too, but
okay.
It won't be too far.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, well, I'll just stay on and I'll wait for it then. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, seeing no more hands up, I'm going to bring this back to the. Oh, go ahead. I didn't see. Okay, Brian, you're the applicant. Go ahead. It just came up right when I looked at it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Brian Shields here. I'm the project manager for the Maple Creek Ranch Corporation. I just wanted to chime in and reiterate, going with Cliff's statements that, we had this survey done by a qualified botanical consultant and was submitted and in the queue as far back as June of 2020. And the botanical consultant identified through other findings due to an active NTMP on the property that there was some areas of concern for a specific type of plant that needed to have another survey later in the season, to which he then came back out and performed. So the original assessment was done in 2019, and the whole area that was proposed for the new cultivation and ancillary support facilities had a comprehensive botanical survey performed on it. And then again, came back out towards the, middle to the end, I guess, of the plant growth cycle for the other identified plant to complete the survey. That project was wrapped up and submitted in a complete package and sent out to referral for CDFW, like I said, back in June of 2020. And here we are 9 months later, receiving comments a week and a half before our hearing. So I just wanted to provide some context to what's going on here to the commission. And if you have any additional questions regarding the project, I'd be more than willing to answer them for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. This is going to be the only person I'm going to let rebuttal to this, because we're going to keep this thing moving, but I'm going to let Greg come back because he put his hand back up. But this will be the last time. Go ahead, Greg.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. I just wanted to clarify that this is not new information and it's not late information. The CEQA document was circulated on the state clearinghouse only about a month or so ago, and the department submitted formal comments on that letter, which identified this as an issue. And there's been several email correspondences with county staff on this issue, which should have been provided to you as a supplement. So it's a bit of a misrepresentation that this is late information or that it's new information. So thank you for that opportunity to comment one more time.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to close the public comment and bring this back to the commission now. And Thomas, you have your hand up.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So just a point of clarification, from what I read, the engineer believes that it was a protocol level botanical survey. And what I'm understanding is CDFW is feeling it wasn't a protocol level survey. So is that the discrepancy, or am I mishearing what's happening? And sorry, my son just walked in. I got to give him a hug.
Care of business. John.
Okay, so it is the agent and the biologist, Carl Ware, who identified that they believed it was a protocol level survey, identified subsequent surveying that needed to be done. And so evidently CDFW does not believe it went far enough to comply with their guidelines. I think we're under the understanding that the biologist that prepared the survey feels that it was adequate or is adequate.
That answer your question, Thomas? Yeah, thank you. Melanie, your hand's up next.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to ask some along the similar lines. I was just wondering if there was any way to get clarification as to what in the botany survey was lacking.
I could go ahead and answer that, I believe, and you may want to ask Greg O'Connell to weigh in on that. But my understanding is that CDFW believes that there should have been more surveys done earlier in the season. And that because the surveys were done in July and August, that they possibly would not have been able to identify all plant species that would have been on the site. The botanist who did the surveys believes otherwise. And so I think that's where we find ourselves.
So So does the botanist address that by, for example, saying that they were able to ID the plants by leaf?
Yes, so I did call and have a very good conversation with Kyle Weir, who was the botanist. He believes that he would have been able to identify any leaves or leaves or any other plant stalks, even if the plant was not blooming in July.
Right.
So he felt pretty confident that he would have been able to identify those. And so again, you know, we're in a position where CDFW, who I don't believe, and they could correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe they've been on the site, but they believe that earlier surveys should have occurred.
Yeah, I mean, most botanists should be able to identify plants, you know, whether they're in a reproductive cycle or not, just by the leaf. So I'm just curious as to whether these are spring ephemerals, maybe, that, you know, come up by bulb and bloom before they have leaves. I mean, I'd just like to know exactly what the problem is, because from my point of view, the botanist most likely was able to identify the plants by leaves, unless there's evidence that there are spring ephemerals that bloom before they leaf in the area.
Well, I'm not going to open the public hearing back up, so I tried. The last meeting, that went back and forth a dozen times, and I said I'm not doing that no more, and I'm going to stick to it. So we have two choices: we can act on this, or we can move it and to a date out to have it come back to us. So
would I be able to ask the CDFW representative that one question?
Oh, Melanie. Okay, this is it. One. All right. Yeah. Greg is still with us. I'm going to allow him to speak one time. Go ahead, Greg.
Thank you. Yeah, so there's a range of plants that will occur throughout a growing season, and that's why the Botanical Survey Protocol specifies that site visits should occur throughout the growing season: an early season survey, mid-season survey, and late season survey, because there's early ephemerals, like you just stated. Those plants can come and go, and then as well as species that occur late in the season may not be identifiable early in the season. So these surveys were all done kind of late summer, July and August in a drought year. So there's that whole early season that was missed, which is part of the survey protocol. It wasn't a floristic survey. And I had talked with the consultant previously, and he acknowledged to me that it wasn't a floristic survey throughout the season of the botanical season, and that he had changed his procedure since.
But do you have evidence, though, that there were spring ephemerals in that area? Because I've done botanical surveys, and it is possible to survey without the flowers.
Sure, it may be possible, like you said, if somebody like Kyle Weir, who I know fairly well, and he is a good botanist. But the short of it is that there is a protocol for this very reason that the Department of Fish and Wildlife has created, that specifies that you shouldn't just go out there, at one season for a botanical survey, that it should cover a variety of seasons. And then, so I'll leave it at that. Happy to answer any other questions at a future time or now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, Thomas, you have your hand up.
Questions. One is, what would be the repercussions if the commission moved forward on what's presented tonight, if staff believes we have enough evidence to move forward? And second part of that question, if there is a potential mutual ground between staff and CDFW, would that mutual ground possibly be some more early surveys? As I heard, there was early surveys not taking place to meet their protocol level surveys. So this could be back before the commission before May or June.
I guess I'll just kind of jump in real quick. I think that the repercussions of deciding that additional surveys would be needed is that, again, we probably would not be back in front of the commission until May or June, which for this project would probably result in that being pushed off for another year.
What would happen if we did something like, for example, approve the project, but if the botanical surveys came back, you know, to the point where this project would need to come back before us again, then it could. Are we allowed to ask for something like that?
I would think that we're either going to approve the project or we're going to not approve the project, or we're going to continue it to a date uncertain if we're going to require that this happen. It seems misfortunate that the botanists didn't come together on it, but it's not like no work has been done and nothing jumped out at me. Of course, this isn't my field of expertise like yours, but it seems to me we either have two choices. We make a vote, we take a vote on this tonight, or we continue it. But
if I could step in, Chair.
Go ahead.
If the botanist did, in fact, acknowledge to Mr. O'Connell that he did not do a floristic survey, which is our understanding that one was done, then we would be in danger of asking the commission to take action on something with inadequate information.
And
so,
if I could just interrupt real quick, I apologize for that, but I have to say that
you're not listening to me. I think we need to continue this because we're putting you in a place where you're not going to be able to make a comfortable decision tonight. So I would recommend that you continue it.
Director, what does the commission feel on that?
With what the director just said, I would make a motion to continue this item to a date uncertain. Just because that last statement, and then to piggyback on that, when Cliff is speaking, I don't know if my internet's messed up or my computer, but I have a really hard time hearing him.
He is very low. Maybe yes, turn up his volume, but okay. So we have a motion to continue this to a date uncertain. So, do we have a second for that?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second now to continue this to a date uncertain. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, I will take a vote. Laura.
Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder.
Yes.
No, is Noah in yet? Or he hasn't heard this one, so okay. Mike Newman.
He's out for this one.
Oh, that's right, abstain.
By 8 o'clock.
Peggy O'Neill.
Yes.
Brian Mitchell.
Yes.
Melanie McCaver.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you, Laura. So this will be continued to a date uncertain. So let's see it again. All right. Next, we're going to move on to public hearings, section H. And the first one is Renewable Properties LLC, Hatchery Roads, the solar project. And it's already been continued to April 1st. So it was agendized, so they had to put it in. I asked about that earlier. And then the one that, everybody has been waiting for, the Arcata Land Company LLC conditional use permit. And the director would like to speak to what I was speaking about earlier that I didn't know what I was speaking about. And that was the large number of people. And I guess we've exceeded that number. So he's going to explain it to us.
Thank you, Chair Bongio. We are at our capacity with respect to Zoom. And so new people cannot currently join the video feed for Zoom. So if you're currently interested in watching and do not have a video feed, you can watch through Access Humboldt. And then when it comes time to call in to participate in the public hearing, you can still call in. We've got unlimited access with respect to the call-in numbers on the phone. The problem is the phone and the Access Humboldt timing will not be exact. And so if you're trying to listen on the phone and watch Access Humboldt, you're going to be seeing a different image from what you're hearing. So we apologize in advance for any confusion that this may cause, but we do want people to be able to call in and participate and give their public input. So when the public hearing is opened, please do call the number on the agenda. And then when you're called upon, hit *6 and you will be unmuted. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. You did a much better job than I would trying to explain that. So with that, I would ask for a staff report, please. Not hearing you. Rodney.
Good evening, Commission, members of the public. My name is Rodney Andel, Senior Planner, Humboldt County Planning. I'll be presenting the Arcata Land Company project this evening. At this point, I will attempt to share my screen.
Mike, forgot about him. I just called him. Newman. He's in.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. This project is, the applicant is Arcata Land Company, LLC. It's a conditional use permit in Arcata, California area. This slide here gives everyone an idea of the location of the project, where this green push pin is here. It's located outside of the city of Arcata in the Arcata Bottoms. The application is for a conditional use permit for 22.9 acres of commercial cannabis cultivation, 770,938 square foot of which will be light deprivation cultivation. 147,457 square feet will be mixed light cultivation, and 83,040 square feet will be ancillary nursery space. 3 ancillary support buildings totaling 62,100 square feet are proposed. 2 stormwater detention basins totaling 0.8 acre feet in storage size are also proposed. And also proposed is an on-site wastewater treatment system. Water for irrigation will be sourced from a permitted groundwater well. Annual water use estimated at 17 million gallons. That's 17 gallons per square foot per year. A maximum of 116 employees are anticipated for the operation, and powers to be supplied by PG&E. The project parcel is accessed directly off Foster Avenue, which is a Category 4 road with a centerline stripe. The parcel is zoned heavy industrial with a qualified combining zone and has a general plan designation of agricultural exclusive. The project is proposed to be done in phases. In the first phase is this: construction of ancillary support buildings and completion of the site preparation activities, including grading, access road development, installation of utilities, fencing and security features, septic system, and stormwater management controls. Operations will consist of cultivation activities within the existing hoop houses located in the northwest corner of the property. That's about 6.2 acres. Phase 2 would be the construction and operation of the additional hoop structures. This slide here is showing the project area. This outlined area is the subject parcel. There's a permitted processing facility on the adjacent parcel. It's showing the well located here and some existing agricultural material storage here. This is the inclusive site plan. It's one of many sheets on the site and facility plan but this one kind of gives you an idea of everything that's there. And I'll go through some of these features. What you see in this area is existing hoop structures. These areas here, 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 and here are proposed hoop structures. The light deprivation portion will be taking place in these areas here, and the mixed light will be here. These two areas here and here are set aside for nursery operations. This feature here, the circle, is a proposed 100,000 gallon water storage tank. These features outside the parcel boundary indicate where the proposed stormwater detention basins will be located. These blocks you see over here are the proposed structures to support the operation. Around those structures will be parking, and there's additional parking in this area here. This is a floor plan of the structures I was discussing. This is the utility building, and this here is what they're calling the propagation building. This is the clone room here. It's an indoor clone room. This here is a spill kit. We have emergency eye wash station and shower. And then these three items here are natural gas boilers that will be used to condition the greenhouses. This structure here, they're calling the administrative building. And this has showers, office space, storage, a mechanical room, more office area, a break room, conference room, more offices and storage, and ADA restrooms. And this map actually shows the ADA parking spots in the front of the building here. Many documents were reviewed during our environmental review process, and I have a list of them here. And I'll just run through this very quickly. We looked at a well completion log, hydrologic connectivity letter, stormwater management design memo, a waste management plan, a pet management plan, a septic suitability report, an air quality and greenhouse gas assessment, a biological resources assessment, a wetland delineation report, a FEMA letter of map amendment, a phase 1 environmental assessment, and a traffic study. As a result of the CEQA circulation period and our 10-day noticing period, and even up to today, we've received numerous comments from the public. Some were in support, and a lot of the comment was voicing their concerns about the project. I'm going to read through this list, and then I'm going to go through and address these one by one with a short commentary. And this is not a list of, this list doesn't limit what was said, but these are the concerns that we thought were relative to our environmental review. Those concerns include increased traffic, impacts from odor, visual impacts, light pollution, noise pollution, impacts to groundwater supply, pesticide and fertilizer use, and impacts to water quality, impacts on birds, and energy use. If you'll bear with me, I have a couple sheets here. I just want to kind of briefly address some of these. In regards to traffic, a traffic impact study was prepared for the project, analyzing potential impacts relative to circulation, access for pedestrians, bicyclists, and to transit. Based on the findings of the study, it was found that the project would only have a potential impact on level of service at 2 intersections in Arcata. As a result, the traffic impact study recommended that the applicant pay proportional share fees to the city of Arcata to alleviate the project's contribution to the needed improvements at Foster and Alliance Road and Sunset Avenue and the US 101 North Ramp. I'd like to point out, well, it reads like this. In addition, it should be noted that the Q zone in which the project is proposed principally permits what was at the time at the adoption of the Q zone existing wood products processing facilities and vehicular traffic of no greater intensity than a total of 1,229 trips per day. This project proposes 232 trips per day. In regards to odor, odors from the cultivation process will be controlled using fans that direct airflow through the enclosed tube structures to carbon filtration units. In the event that filtration is inadequate, odor neutralizers such as EcoZorb, which is a water-based product that contains a proprietary blend of natural plant oils and bio-based surfactants that effectively absorb odor molecules and neutralize their smell, may be utilized. The filtration system will be designed, signed, and stamped by a mechanical engineer for review and approval by the building official. In addition, the project is conditioned to mitigate impacts from odors in our staff report. Visual impacts. The project site is not located near any designated scenic highway or scenic vista. The project is proposed on parcels zoned heavy industrial. In fact, the site was previously used as a log deck for a lumber mill, and the mill buildings still remain on site. The site continues to be used for industrial purposes within the existing buildings, and the proposed hoop structures and accessory buildings will not be as high or large as those typical at an industrial complex. Night sky impacts. The CMMLUO requires that mixed light cultivation comply with International Dark Skies Association standards and be designed to regulate light spillage onto neighboring properties resulting from backlight, uplight, or glare. Blackout tarps will shield the mixed light hoop structures from sunset to sunrise to assure that no light escapes into the night skies. The project is required to follow these standards that exceed the requirements of the County General Plan Scenic Resources Standard SR-S4 for light and glare. That light be shielded and designed and installed to minimize off-site lighting and direct light within the property boundaries. Noise pollution. The project is conditioned so as the fans do not generate significant noise levels that will exceed the Humboldt County General Plan noise element standards. The project activities within the administrative buildings and hoop structures will be limited from a noise generating perspective and will meet applicable county building and zoning code requirements for noise levels. Outside noise generating activities will include vehicle use and small agricultural support equipment. From a noise standpoint, project activities will be consistent with agricultural and vehicle equipment used at the site under the baseline condition. Once again, the project is conditioned to assure compliance with the standards outlined in our noise element. Impacts to groundwater supply. The change in use from a flower and crop production to cannabis will not result in additional water use. And information available through the California Department of Water Resources indicates that existing groundwater extraction in the Mad River lowland subbasin is well below the available groundwater storage of 25,000 acre feet, which recharges every year through rainwater, applied water, and percolation from the Mad River and tributaries thereto. I'm almost done. Pesticide and fertilizer use and impacts to water quality. Storage and use of fertilizers, organic pesticides, and fungicides will be conducted in accordance with the best practical treatment and control measures of the State Water Resource Control Board, which include requirements to apply fertilizers and soil amendments at only proper ergonomic rates, and to store materials in a manner that is protected from rainfall and erosion. The cultivation will occur in enclosed hoop structures that will ensure the containment of fertilizers, pesticides, and fungicides within the cultivation area only. The enclosed hoop structures will include carbon filtration intended to control odor, which will also ensure that any aerosol pesticides are trapped in carbon filters before air is circulated to outside the hoop structures. No storage of fertilizers, pesticides, fungicides, or hazardous materials will occur on the proposed cultivation site. All storage will occur on an adjacent parcel under common ownership that is currently set up and permitted to store and manage fertilizers, pesticides, fungicides, and hazardous materials used in existing agricultural operations. The materials would be stored in fully enclosed watertight containers in a manner so that they cannot enter or be transported into surface waters or groundwater. In addition, excess water used during cultivation or during irrigation will be recycled or evaporated instead of discharged. No cultivation water will be disposed of by discharge, and no groundwater contamination is anticipated. Impacts on birds. The project areas do not contain designated critical habitat for any listed species. However, mitigation is in place, so that if project-related brush clearing must occur during the breeding season, a pre-constructing nesting bird survey shall be conducted by a qualified biologist no more than 2 weeks prior to project activities. If active nests are found, a no disturbance buffer zone of minimum of 250 feet shall be established. Within this buffer zone, No construction shall take place until September 1st or until a biologist determines the nest is no longer active. Lastly, in regards to energy use, the project will be drawing no more than 1.9 megawatts at any given time. Pacific Gas and Electric has been made aware of this and have not expressed any concerns. Well, that was a mouthful. This next 4 slides are they're going to exhibit some changes to a couple conditions that we're recommending and the addition of a couple. So this one here is a proposed condition to replace another condition that's within the existing staff report. For the life of the project should not result in a continued discernible odor of cannabis at the property lines of adjoining existing residential uses. Should the Planning and Building Department receive complaints regarding odor, the Planning and Building Department will inspect and evaluate the cause of the perceived odor. If it is determined by staff that the project is causing the odor, staff will work with the applicant/owner to resolve and return the project to compliance in a timely manner. Resolution may entail additional maintenance and/or replacement of the air filtration system. At a minimum, the applicant operator shall present a plan to the Planning and Building Division within 10 days of initial county contact to address the odor. Next one. This is a proposed condition that is not currently in existence within the staff report. Prior to issuance of the building permit, the applicant shall submit a revised operations manual to the Planning and Building Department describing how odor resulting from the harvesting and transport of cannabis to the processing facility on the adjacent parcel will be mitigated and/or controlled, consistent with the condition I just described above. Next one. This is another proposed condition. Prior to the issuance of building permits, the applicant operator shall submit a noise study based on fan manufacturer specifications for the review of the Planning and Building Department, demonstrating that cumulative sound levels from the fans within the hoop structures shall not exceed 60 CNEL, which is community noise equivalent level, measured at the property lines. Last one. And this condition is proposed to replace or modify the condition that I turned in yesterday with my supplemental number 1. In the event there are complaints regarding noise from the fans within the hoop structures, staff will investigate if there's a likelihood that the noise from the fans is exceeding the CNEL standard. If the findings of the investigation show that noise levels do not meet the CNEL standard, an appropriate noise study shall be conducted at the applicant/owner's expense. If the findings of the noise study show that the noise levels do not meet the CNEL standard, the applicant operator shall have a minimum of 10 days to develop a plan to bring noise levels into compliance. As you know, there was a negative declaration done for this project, and there was mitigation developed in these areas, for these areas: biological resources, cultural resources, tribal cultural resources, geology, and soils. County staff recommends that the commission adopt the Arcata Land Company LLC Commercial Cannabis Outdoor Light Deprivation and Mixed Light Cultivation Project Mitigated Negative Declaration, make all required findings for approval of this conditional use permit, and adopt the resolution approving the Arcata Land Company LLC conditional use permit subject to the recommended conditions of approval. This concludes my presentation. Myself and staff will be available if anyone has any questions. Thank you.
I was muted. Sorry about that. Thank you, Rodney, for your presentation. Does any of the commissioners have questions for staff at this time? Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
So one of my first questions is about the letter from the Humboldt County Growers Alliance about possible 1.0 versus 2.0 things about the acreage size. Has staff addressed any of those points?
I can answer this.
Go ahead, Robert.
I did speak with the director of that organization, and I informed her that in the MH zone, there is no limit to the size of the cultivation. The only limitation would be setbacks to property lines and any environmental constraints that may or may not be on the property. Does that answer your question?
If I could add a little bit to that.
Go ahead, Director.
I think the one thing where there were allegations that this is inconsistent with the MH zone, I think the size probably shocks people, and just to put that out there, front and center. But in terms of the intention of the county relative to industrial zones, both the CMM-LUO and the CC-LUO looked at industrial sites as desirable locations to redevelop through cannabis, to reuse those sites. And so it has been a priority, frankly, of the county to process cannabis cultivation on industrial sites.
That answer your question, Mike?
Yes, that does. Thank you.
Melanie, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering if the applicant had been in contact with the city of Arcata or the regional transit organization in regards to maybe getting another transit stop.
I think we will let the applicant address what they've done relative to the city of Arcata. You will notice that part of the analysis for the traffic was not strictly related to VMT, but did address improvements related to level of service for the city of Arcata. I am under the distinct impression that is a result of direct communication with Arcata.
Okay, I guess, but thank you.
Thomas? You there, Thomas? I see you had your hand up. Oh, no.
Sorry, my computer's got like a double click thing. Before we go out to public comment, is this where we should be doing ex parte disclosures if we visited the site?
Yes.
Okay, so ex parte disclosure on last Friday, whatever day that was. It's been a long week. I drove to the site on my own. I showed up there early, kind of drove around trying to find everyone. I ended up driving all the way around the processing site and then met up with the director and Rodney and the owner, Mr. DeVries, were there, and Melanie showed up briefly afterwards. I rode to the flower or the cultivation site in Mr. DeVries' pickup, and then we had a meeting there. And then when I got a ride back to my truck, I rode with the director and Rodney back to my pickup. And then I'm just going to throw it out there. A company I do own is a member of the HCGA organization that did send a letter. I had no interest, nor was I part of any of the letter being sent. But it has nothing, I've just heard some rumors out there that supposedly I was part of putting together that letter. So I'm just throwing it out there. I had nothing to do with that letter being out there. So that's into my ex parte.
Thank you. Mike,
I also, yeah, I'd also just add that, yes, I did visit the site. It was on Friday. And I think we all received a letter from Nadalyn DeLapp. The same letter that went into public comment was sent to us through email. And I have a couple voice messages, I think, from Nadalyn DeLapp that I haven't listened to yet. And I will reserve for after. Thanks. That's all.
Thank you, Melanie. Mike Newman. Your hand
So
up.
I just want to disclose that I did go out to the site as well on Thursday, Rodney, and it was basically like Thomas, same sort of thing the day before. So just to walk out and look at the site. nothing else, just looking. That's about it.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions of staff at this time before we open this up to the public? Seeing no hands, I am going to open this up for public comment, and I would ask that the applicant wait till the end and speak.
I think he's looking.
Okay, actually, I guess the director is saying that they're going to do some kind of a presentation at the beginning, and then we'll let them rebut at the end after they get to hear concerns from the public. So I did not know about that. I apologize. So with that, I'd ask the applicant to address the commission and tell us about your project.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. Members of the commission, my name is Jordan Main. I'm a land use consultant for Arcata Land Company. I'll address the potential first question. That is a real set of flowers behind me, not a fake background for the Sun Valley Group. Wanted to start just by introducing the core team that you'll likely hear from during the presentation. So I'm here with Lane DeVries, who's the owner of the Arcata Land Company and also the applicant. Also Jeff Smith, who is the permitting agent from Lenders Construction Services, and Tristan Strauss, who's the CEO of Headwaters and future operator of the site. With that, wanted to let you know we appreciate the opportunity to be before you tonight and present to the commission. We understand that this project is of significant interest and concern to the community, and we look forward to addressing many of the elements of feedback we've received through the public comment period. So I wanted to share my screen. Hopefully this is successful. Let's see here. We have a PowerPoint we'll walk through. Please let me know if that is visible. Can you guys see that? Excellent. Okay. So first, I wanted to just give a general overview of the presentation. So we're going to start with a summary of the project and project purpose. And Lane DeVries is going to help us with that. He's going to give a brief history of the Sun Valley Group and why this project came to be and its importance to the company. We'll then discuss the suitability of this site to house a project of this size, including the surrounding uses in the vicinity of the project. We'd then like to talk about the significant environmental planning and studies that went into the project development. Rodney covered much of this, so my goal will not be to be duplicative, but to expand on some of what Rodney shared. Finally, we'll close with a summary of the significant economic benefits to Humboldt County and the community that this project will bring. So I'd like to introduce Lane DeVries for a short overview of the project.
Well, good evening, everyone. Board of Commissioners, my name is Lane DeVries, and I'm a California flower farmer. And I immigrated to this great country in 1983. And I'm a fourth generation flower farmer. And I came to Arcata in 1984 to grow lilies at the Sun Valley site. And in those days, Sun Valley was only growing daffodils and iris outside. There were virtually no greenhouses. So over the years, we slowly built greenhouses. And in 1991, my partners and I bought the company, and we continued to expand at the Arcata Bottoms, and we sell our flowers throughout the country to all the major supermarkets, including Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, and many wholesalers around the country. We have slowly expanded through the years to a size of about 2.5 million square feet of greenhouse space and many buildings and coolers in which we grow our tulips. In 1999, we purchased the Simpson Mill which is right next door to the Sun Valley property. And when we purchased that mill site, we actually took out about 20 acres of blacktop and gravel and turned it back into farmland. And we've been growing flowers on those in those fields. And those are the same fields we're talking about today. The economic climate of doing business in California has become increasingly more difficult. And our company is facing that. And many of my colleagues in Southern California and in many of the other growing regions have faced those same issues. And I've seen a lot of my fellow flower farmers forced to go out of business. And we as Sun Valley, we have been working really hard to continue to be a flower farm. And that's not been easy in a difficult environment in California. Now, on top of that, last year, the COVID-19 pandemic hit our company particularly hard. We had our greenhouses full of flowers slated for the Easter holiday when the pandemic hit. And we lost millions and millions and millions of flowers that just bloomed out in our greenhouses. So the financial hit that the pandemic had on our company is significant. So why is this project so important? We as a company provide 450 jobs in Humboldt County, right here in Arcata. And those 450 jobs represent $27.8 million in payroll. Then on top of that, we spent $12 million to local vendors in Northern California. And so we're a significant piece of the local economy. And we want to stay here. We want to continue to be a flower farmer in Arcata. With the cannabis ordinance that was passed in 2016, we discovered that on a heavy industrial zone property, like the ALC property, it provided for the type of things that we've been talking about. This is why we proceeded with the application process over 4 years ago. Sun Valley is not a cannabis grower, and we do not intend to grow cannabis. Now, we intend to grow flowers. We are principally flower farmers. But this project in ALC, we look at this as an avenue to continue to stay in business. So when I say we intend to not grow cannabis, we have been talking to people in the community, in the Humboldt community, and elsewhere, who could be a logical tenant for this site, either in terms of leasing or in terms of a purchase. And this, we have been very clear about this from day one. And so in the last several weeks, we have had great conversations with a company called Headwaters, who has his fingers, in the Humboldt County cannabis grower community. And I'm very pleased at this point to introduce Tristan Strauss, the CEO of Headwaters, who will give some light on what Headwaters does and how it could be a great partner for this project, and how it could be a great way to help have a symbiotic relationship with the Humboldt County cannabis grower community. So I'm pleased to introduce Tristan Strauss.
Well, thank you, Lane, for giving me the opportunity, and thank you, planning commissioners and staff, for taking the time to have me speak here today. My name is Tristan Strauss. As Lane said, I'm the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Headwaters. I'm pleased to announce a partnership between Headwaters and the Sun Valley Group. Headwaters intends to be the operator of this proposed farm. As you've just heard, Sun Valley has had a prominent presence in the Arcata agricultural community dating back to 1969, and we are honored with the opportunity to collaborate with such a historic partner. Headwater's reliable reputation as a cultivator and as a nursery and distribution partner is well known throughout the Humboldt cannabis community. As Farmers First, we have been continually operating and expanding in Humboldt County since we developed our first farm at Edwardsburg nearly a decade ago. Our operations have since expanded to include a distribution facility in Arcata, and additional cultivation locally and throughout California. Our team works daily to create a reliable supply chain in California, and we are excited to continue to implement our knowledge and experience as we fortify our Humboldt roots. Currently, we work with over 150 independent local cannabis businesses. This project will only further our long-term vision for unity and partnership across the Humboldt cannabis community. We clearly hear the concerns of the community. Headwaters understands the potential impact a project of this magnitude may have locally. Collectively, Sun Valley and Headwaters are committed to addressing these impacts head-on by working with community members, appointed officials, and by implementing the latest scientific developments and technology. We are here to share solutions to these concerns as the project develops. And as longtime cannabis farmers, we are witnessing this crop become an integral part of the California's agricultural sector. With the community support, this project has the potential to showcase Humboldt County's leadership in the cannabis industry. We look forward to working with the community and Sun Valley to operate a farm that will create growth and opportunity for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Tristan. So, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't want to spend a lot of time regurgitating what Rodney had said earlier. Rodney did a very nice job giving some granular detail on the project. I did want to give a high-level overview just so it's very clearly understood the nature of the project. So this involves cultivation only. It's 22.9 acres of cultivation, of which 5.7 acres is proposed as mixed light. That is with artificial lighting. I think there's some confusion around this fact. The remainder of the site, over 17 acres, would be outdoor light deprivation with no artificial lighting. So processing would occur at the existing permitted processing facility, which is located directly adjacent on a contiguous parcel under common ownership. So no processing to occur on site. We wanted to walk through site suitability, and we think this contextually is important as a foundational item to understand both the historic use of the site, the current use of the site, and where the site sits in relation to the community. So starting with the historic use, this picture was taken likely in the late 1980s, 1989, give or take, showing a significant development of an existing mill site, as Lane mentioned, sitting on pavement largely in the area of potential cultivation that we're currently proposing. There's a long history of heavy industrial and agricultural use on this property, including as a mill site from the 1950s through the 1990s. So this site is heavily developed and disturbed. Current use of the project parcel is agriculture. There are 6 acres of existing greenhouses that are used for flower production on the project parcel, and the remainder of the site is graded agricultural fields used in the past for flowers and row crops, and most recently as certified organic quinoa farming. Rodney touched on this, but I wanted to circle back. The site zoning is perfectly set up for this type of project. The site is zoned heavy industrial. It has a qualified combining zone. Under the cannabis ordinance, there are no acreage limits in the MH zone for cultivation. The qualified combining zone on this particular parcel allows as a principally permitted use. That means without additional environmental review, this is an as of right use. A wood products processing facility could be resumed with employee trips of over 1,000 per day and up to 80 truck trips. So the site is principally permitted as a wood products facility for over 1,200 trips a day. Again, contextually, this parcel, which is outlined in yellow, sits in the middle of a much larger holding of the project applicant, over 275 acres. Just to the north of the proposed project, there are 60 acres of existing greenhouses. So much in keeping with the existing aesthetic of the site and use of the overall property, which is large scale flower production and processing and agricultural crops. With respect to distance to sensitive uses as defined by the ordinance, this map, which shows a 600-foot radius around the project boundary, and as apparent, it nearly is entirely contained within the ownership boundary of the Sun Valley Group Arcata Land Company. The sensitive uses, churches, schools, and parks as defined by the ordinance are highlighted in either a black triangle or green circle on this map, and you can see that they're significantly outside of the 600-foot setback. Additional project site benefit. So the existing infrastructure and utilities at the site are important in that there are no new or expanded utilities and facilities needed to service the project, which minimizes the development risk and environmental impact of the site. A consolidation of cultivation at the processing location allows for decreased vehicle miles traveled, wear and tear on roads, and the associated emissions that are tied to transporting cannabis from a distant cultivation site to an off-site processing location. Finally, the project's size allows for economies of scale that can afford advanced automation and proper controls for the types of environmental impacts that the community has raised. And we'll go through some of those in detail. I want to discuss the environmental planning associated with the site. As Lane mentioned, the project has been in the planning stages for over 4 years. And through that process, Rodney had a similar slide, but what was involved to inform the project design was significant expert technical input. So in nearly every impact category, a third-party consultant was retained to assess impacts, and the project was designed around the results of these studies in an effort to minimize impacts, set back where it is needed, and to lessen all key environmental impact categories. We're going to touch on a few of the primary impact areas. With respect to night lighting, the project will simply not result in light pollution from the greenhouses. One, as we stated earlier, approximately 25% of the site will use artificial lighting. The remainder will not. And according to ordinance standards and our use permit, we have strict adherence requirements to dark sky standards. So light and glare will be eliminated using computer automated blackout coverings to prevent light from escaping. And for the grower, this is equally important in the light deprivation components of the project to ensure that no light is allowed to enter those greenhouses at certain times of the growing season. So light control will be of significant importance. With respect to odor, the project will utilize state-of-the-art equipment to control odor. As Rodney mentioned, ventilation of each greenhouse will occur through a defined exhaust point with an activated carbon filter that is integrated into the exhaust system. We've been collaborating with Headwaters, who has facilities in other locations, has significant experience with odor control, and they have advised on proper odor control systems for this location. The applicant has also agreed to implement a detailed odor control plan to be reviewed and approved by the planning department prior to operation. With respect to noise, there's been some concern about noise from the fans. The project will not produce unacceptable levels of noise. The fans are being chosen to meet all applicable standards of the noise ordinance. For comparison, the applicant retained SHN to conduct a noise study in proximity to the existing greenhouses and fans. This was done recently. The results of that study indicate that at 50, 100, and 150 feet from those locations, we're well below the 60 LDN standard that Rodney mentioned. And we anticipate that with the newer technology fans that will be procured for the site, we'll have absolutely no issue meeting the noise ordinance. With respect to pesticide and chemical use, the project will not result in soil or water contamination. We'll use automated irrigation systems to deliver very precise water and nutrient needs without overwatering. Within the greenhouse, we'll also employ a capture system whereby irrigation water that may drip through the pots will be captured and reused. With respect to water supply, the water will be supplied by an existing agricultural well that's been in production since the 1990s. The project parcel itself has agricultural crops and flowers that require frost protection. According to pumping records, the existing usage on the project parcel is 58 acre-feet per year. Our anticipated project demand is 52 acre-feet per year. So from a baseline standpoint, we will be below existing water usage levels. Finally, I'd like to turn this over for our closing slide back to Lane, where he's going to give a summary of the economic benefits. I would just ask respectfully that we have an opportunity after the close of public comment to come back and address issues raised by the public. So I wanted to make that request.
Yes, you will.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Tristan. So in terms of economic benefits, like I mentioned earlier, we currently provide about 450 jobs here in the Arcata Farm with some of the best team members you can find. We have a family atmosphere here that we have been building on. With this project, there will be an additional 116 additional jobs. Currently, Sun Valley pays $800,000 in property tax a year. We're probably one of the highest property tax payers in the county. With this project, the combined Sun Valley and the Headwaters facilities combined will see a tax revenue in excess of $2 million per year. I want to reemphasize the importance of this project to our company. The livelihood of 450 team members and their families depend on approval of this project. And I can't stress that enough, because the flower business by itself is very precarious. So we need this project for continuation of our flower farm right here in Humboldt County. I thank you very much for your consideration, and I'm turning it back over to Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you, Lane. With that concludes our presentation. So our team's happy to answer any initial questions the commission might have.
Can you minimize your screen for me?
Absolutely.
Is there any questions for the applicant at this time from the commissioners before we go to public comment? Mike Newman, go ahead.
So my question is, why Headwaters and who are they exactly? They don't appear to be anybody locally. So I was just wondering the questions behind why them.
I believe Tristan will be happy to address that. I mean, they do have a local presence and they have their fingers throughout the grower community in Humboldt County, but Tristan can address that question much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Lane. So we have licensed cultivation facilities in Southern Humboldt. We also have a distribution facility in Arcata. We have staff in nursery distribution, processing, opportunities throughout the county. We primarily utilize our cultivation efforts in commercial greenhouses to deploy data-based driven decisions on how to cultivate in certain microclimates. Lucky enough, in California, there's a wide variety of microclimates that we're able to cultivate cannabis in. We've become experts in cultivating in coastal zones in California in these greenhouse structures. We use advanced climate control techniques, water mitigation techniques, water reclamation techniques, combined with a scientific study and background of how to cultivate cannabis to a maximum amount of efficacy. We've also had considerable experience in multiple communities with odor mitigation technologies, community outreach, and an overall presence in creating and cultivating positive relationships with communities.
Brian Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was hoping that the applicant could discuss a little bit about the project phasing, how it would be split up into different segments and how those decisions were made.
I'll give it a shot first and let other team members expand. Initially, the project description describes 2 phases, Mr. Mitchell, the first being cultivation within the existing hoop houses located on the project parcel. That's approximately 6 acres. And general development activities to prep the site for the second phase, which is build out of the remainder of the hoop houses throughout the site. So it's really a 2-phase current proposal, with first phase being already built hoop houses.
Did that answer your question, Brian?
It did, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners before we open this up to the public? Seeing none, we will now open this up for public comment. We have quite a large number, and it appears to be growing. I'm going to hold you to the 3-minute time limit. You'll hear at about 30 seconds before your time is up, you'll hear a chime that will sound. Instead of me saying you have 30 seconds like I've been doing, we're going to try something different. And please try to keep it to 3 minutes so that everybody gets a chance. My screen is lit up, so we're going to be here a while. And the first speaker is Karen Davidson. Go ahead. *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello, thanks very much. This is Sean Armstrong, and there'll be 2 speakers, Karen Davidson and Sean. I'll go first. I'm a neighbor on 1887 Q Street. I've had the privilege of working with Lane DeVries to get a unanimous approval from the Coastal Commission for Samoa, and just helped him get his Creekside Homes development approved. We had a little bit of work to do on the road design. So I want to speak tonight on some conditions that suggest, and I've also worked on 300 apartment complexes. So first, I want to say that this is a conditional use permit, so please don't treat this as a yes, no, except the community suggestions are very useful. So one would be make this project all electric, use heat pump boilers. The second would be, that's under the greenhouse gas assessment. The second would be put solar on the project. Any roofs that are available, so you can offset that 1.9 megawatt peak load, which is huge. Number 2, there's a no net loss of ag land policy in Humboldt County. That policy has to precede this conditional use permit. It's a policy. So I suggest that any buildings that get built that are permanent buildings, like for administrative use and such, it looks like there's a 1.6 acres of new buildings. Those should be built on the footprint of the existing buildings. Just go 2 stories. 3, the transit-oriented development analysis should show that there needs to be, the Lane DeVries owns, that's great, he owns the railroad grade that goes all the way into Alliance. So, Alliance there. So I suggest from Janes to the entrance, that railroad grade get developed, and that would mitigate the danger to bicyclists and pedestrians. And similarly on Janes, which I assume is they'll take a right hand. There should be a sidewalk there. There's no sidewalk, but there's multiple schools there. 4, I think there should be a permanent organic easement on this land. There's been a lot of issues with Sun Valley Floral contaminating the groundwater with glyphosate, which is a carcinogen. It's also called Roundup, and it's banned now. But that's been going on for decades, and it creates a lot of smells when they kill all the bulbs and the grass with it, but it contaminates groundwater. And people are using groundwater out here. That's also been adopted by Cypress Grove on their land. It's also been adopted by Lane DeVries on his Creekside farmland, the 26 acres there. And last, I just want to thank Mr. Yandel for doing a great job and a very thorough review. So with that, I'll turn it over to Karen Davidson.
Hi.
You have 30 seconds.
Sure. Well, I'm going to take over. And do I only get 30?
No, it's 2 people, please.
Two people. That's what LAFCO gave us last night.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't.
2
Go
people,
ahead.
1 computer. Come on. There's going to be over 2,000 cars on our road now with Creekside and this. Foster has never been allowed to have 2,000 cars on it every single day. 1 point. So make that a condition that you figure out how to make that safe. I would say my second point is there's going to be 1.5 acres of buildings and parking. There must be a way that you can build on the only existing garbage left from whatever was there decades before. Don't make more of the land look like that horrible stuff to the northwest corner. 2, I think that the plan to pollute the bottoms in order to grow flowers was a bad business model. I owned a corporation of my own for years as a jeweler. I know the difference between planning well and not planning well. And now, you know, I was going to say that they were going to pave Paradise and put up a parking lot because I'm old. But I know that when I bike past that Agent Orange, or when I see the buildings lit up at night in a blackout, that they're not doing well by a place that's right by the Lampier Dunes. You can see DeVries from the dunes. I would also like to say that the conditions that I think would make it more valid would include something to make it small craft growers, more than this Headwaters that I've never heard of. Because if I was a craft beer person, I would hate having Budweiser build a Coliseum right next to my place. And this seems to me like we might be having a version of the Budweiser here because you can't call it small craft. If it's 23 acres and at least 1.5 acres of buildings and parks. I would like conditions that mitigated the traffic, that used only what you were building on was already bad, that they had solar and heat pump, that they had a bike trade, that there are additional traffic needs like sidewalks, and make the whole place organic. Stop using the poisons that we ride past on our bicycles and see the whole land turned orange. It feels like Agent Orange from the
Time is up. So that's 3
Thank
minutes.
you.
Thank you. Next caller is Madeline DeLapp.
Good evening, commissioners. This is Madeline DeLapp, Executive Director of the Humboldt County Growers Alliance. Our mission is to preserve, protect, and enhance Humboldt County's world-renowned cannabis industry. Commissioners, what you have before you is a 1 million square foot, 23-acre project that on its face seems to conform to the first cannabis land use ordinance. Well, at least the ordinance doesn't expressly prohibit what's being proposed, but it is in violation of the principles of the second land use ordinance, which clearly states that 8 acres is the maximum allowed for cultivation. Ordinance 1.0 states, in MH industrial zoned districts, mixed light and outdoor cultivation may be permitted with a conditional use permit, subject to the conditions and limitations set forth therein. Well, those limitations were not set forth therein. I call it a drafting error, a loophole. Back in 2015, when the first land use ordinance was being developed, the community spent months debating the size and scale, some stating that only 2,500 square feet of cultivation would be allowed. Ordinance 1.0 clearly provided every other land use designation with maximum cultivation allowances. But what was written to constrain these industrial lands? Only the discretion of the Planning Commission. Your role as planning commissioners is to use your judgment and weigh the pros and cons of a project. Conditional use permits are discretionary in nature. Otherwise, all projects would be ministerial. Planning staff would determine if the project fits the legal framework or not, and there'd be no purpose for a planning commission or public to weigh in on the merits of the project. Never in all of my years of attending and actively participating in these chambers was cultivation greater than 8 acres imagined or discussed. This project is a bloated monstrosity, arrogant and out of touch in its assumptions of legality, and does not conform with the vision of Humboldt's cannabis industry as craft, local, or independent, as we have collectively established within our laws, policies, and programs. I have seen firsthand your commission use its judgment to deny or modify functionally legal projects because of the will of the people and controversy. Commissioners, this is that project for our members, which is why our policy committee voted to oppose this project unless amended. Our requests are to reduce this project to 8 acres or less, explicitly prohibit mixed light 2 cultivation, examine the energy use of using technology to turn an inhospitable cannabis flowering environment like the cold, wet, and moldy Arcata Bottoms into something more conducive to flowering cannabis, and make it work for the neighborhood. The open air protections in the second land use ordinance should apply to this project.
You have to wrap it up. That's it. I'm holding everybody to 3 minutes. Thank you. Public 9242. There's gotta be 50 people lined up. *6.
Hi, my name is Pam and I live in Arcata on Wyatt and 27th Street. And when my neighbor informed me that the Arcata Land Company, which I know as Sun Valley Bee Farm, was asking the planning department for permits for a cannabis grow with 193 greenhouses, I was in shock. It is wrong in so many levels, and I'm sure others will express their concerns too. The first thing I did was call my friend who lives on Elk River Road, where there are 2 greenhouses, just 2. He feels his rural lifestyle has been ruined by the greenhouses. He cannot enjoy his home because it has a consistence of noise and fans and machinery. He looks out his front windows and he looks at the greenhouses, not the valley that he enjoyed for over 40 years. That is just from 2 greenhouses. I can't imagine what 193 greenhouses is going to do to the Arcata Bottoms. The increased light, smell, noise, soil contamination, and traffic will not be conducive for the public welfare of the people around the massive cannabis project. The 9th largest in the nation. Wow. Don't let this be about money. And I can see that we've lived here for 36 years. It's our forever home. And we don't want to see this production go on. There's a certain amount of trust. I know you've had rebuttals of our concerns, but I live on 27th Street, and I can tell you that some of the promises that this corporation has made has not come true. We have huge trucks barreling down 27th Street. They weren't supposed to do that. And there's a hedge that's supposed to be maintained, and it's not being maintained. So I just think that this should not go through. We're going to be consistently combating with this corporation, and hopefully you nip it in the bud. Please don't pass this project. Don't ruin the Arcata Bottoms. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller is public 7708. *6 on mute. 7708, are you there? *6 to unmute. Seeing nobody, I'll move on to the next number, which is public 5390. *6.
Hi, sorry, it took me a minute there. Hi, my name is Dave Dickinson. I'm a small cannabis farmer in Humboldt County. And I have to say, I have rarely witnessed such an infomercial coming from the Planning Commission. That was pretty spectacular. But sadly, I think this project is completely out of scale and out of proportion to what Humboldt County is about. This is, it's insane. I don't know how to put it any simpler than that. And I think that doing this would create vastly more problems for our local industry than it proposes to solve. It's huge, it's unnecessary, it's going to flood the market with mids and cheap stuff, and there's just no way in hell that I think this thing should be done. And 8 acres, even 8 acres on that parcel is ridiculously large. So I would encourage you to think very carefully about passing this project as it's designed now. It's completely crazy. Thanks.
Thank you. Next caller, public 7548.
Yes, my name is Peggy Bell Hans, and my family and I have lived at 2859 Wyatt Lane for 27 years. We have a wonderful neighborhood with the same family since we bought here in 1994. We moved here to raise our 2 daughters and be part of a community concerned with each of our own impacts on the environment and Mother Earth, and how to be good stewards of this beautiful and unique land. We are directly downwind of the proposed project, about 1,000 feet, and have alarming concerns with this proposed project, which is environmentally inappropriate for the Arcata Bottoms. This area is known for being cold, damp, and foggy, which makes for poor cannabis production. Noise from numerous industrial fans will have to go 24/7 to keep the inevitable mold off of their plants. Lack of sunshine will necessitate artificial lighting that will glow the skies and make enjoyment of the nighttime observation of stars nearly impossible, or the serene distant ocean sounds. This proposed project was quietly going through the planning process with you giving us no notice of the surrounding neighbors on Wyatt and 27th, the most impacted from this huge mega grow. There has not been the proper CEQA environmental impact study, only the mitigated negative declaration, which has falsehoods and omitting recognition of the negative and harmful effects of our families, neighborhoods, schools, churches, and recreational areas, especially our newly expanding City of Arcata Ennis Park and the Creekside Home Project. I'm an occupational therapist by profession with my field of expertise in geriatric rehabilitation with over 45 years in home health and long-term care. The new senior housing project called Creekside Home will have a total of 100 residential care beds with a mixture of assisted living units and memory care units. My concern is that the negative impact on these seniors will be enormous. The mitigated negative declaration states that a sensitive receptor is a person who is particularly susceptible to health effects due to exposure to an air contaminant. Land uses considered sensitive receptors include residences, schools, playgrounds, child care centers, long-term health care facilities, rehab centers, convalescent centers, and retirement homes. Significant impacts to air quality on sensitive receptors from odors of cannabis, toxic odors from pesticides and chemicals will hit 8 of these 9 receptors just mentioned. I'm concerned with the senior population that has both cardiac and pulmonary conditions, and how will that affect their quality of life? Will they be able to walk around the grounds for exercise or be confined indoors? How will noise and light pollution change these residents' sleep patterns, behaviors, and any cognitive changes? Who's going to protect the residents of these care facilities? It's putting these vulnerable population at a considerable risk. In conclusion, you must deny this project, or at least require an environmental impact report to
Next caller, Rebecca Crow.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Rebecca Crow, and I'm a resident and neighbor of the proposed project. I live 1,700 feet. I'm a licensed civil engineer with over 20 years experience in Humboldt County. I'd like to comment on the utilities and service system in the ISM&D and comment on the findings in evidence C. Sorry, I'll have to speak fast because I didn't get a half an hour like the applicant. By providing water to 116 employees over 60 days out of the year through the proposed existing well on the adjacent parcel, Arcata Land Company will become a non-community, non-transient public water system. I attached information to Rodney and John Ford. A public water system requires permitting. The existing well may be permitted for agricultural use, but it cannot be used for potable water use for the 160 employees on site. The ISM&D provides no documentation of the quality of water in the groundwater well. The well was not designed for potable use, and it does not meet the county's sanitary seal requirements for potable use. The Arcata Land Company is required to obtain a domestic water supply permit for use of that well for their employees. Therefore, there are potential significant unmitigatable impacts. In addition, the ISM&D site's existing potable water supply line that crosses the site is an alternative water source. There's a water pipeline that crosses that parcel, but is owned by Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District, not the city of Arcata. The estimated water use for this project is the equivalent of 14 full-time residential water connections. Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District is a wholesale water provider, and the line that goes past that property was not designed to provide residential water connections at the scale of this project. So as laid out, the project will have conflicts with water system, will have conflicts, and there should be found to be impacts. Further, the documentation provided by Richwell Drilling of the evidence of the capacity of the groundwater well is inadequate. The document estimates the capacity and provides no drawn down tests, which should be required. Further, the memo states, I do not believe that the well has a hydraulic connection to any surface water or any other large, shallow, homogeneous aquifer. That is the only documentation provided in the backup source for the ISM&D, so the project will not have an effect on drinking water. Further, for groundwater, evidence, finding number 6, evidence F, the evidence provided relies on data from the California Department of Water Resources from the years 2003, 1996, and 1973. I included additional data that shows that the project does not appropriately account for climate change related to groundwater, sea level rise, water supply and demand, water operations, agricultural, and ecosystem functioning. The project needs to account for the impacts of these over the 95 years, which is the potential lifetime of the project. The estimated recharge to the groundwater basin is estimated from 1973 and must be updated.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller's 9729. *6 to unmute yourself, please. 9729. Okay, moving on to the next caller is Abe. Go ahead, Abe.
Unmuted. Okay, am I good here?
Barely hear you.
You can hear me? All right. So my primary concern was with the mention about the filtration system. They did say that they were going to integrate a system called EcoZorb. However, that wasn't going to be put in initially. It sounds as if they're going to have the carbon filtration system, and then if that proves to be ineffective, then to involve the EcoZorb. To me, that's unacceptable. In most cases, a carbon filtration system isn't going to be able to remove those volatile organic compounds to a sufficient level to drop beneath odor detection thresholds. And that's going to be a huge issue with trying to mitigate the smell problem, because we're going to be able to smell the grow at that point. So I think that there needs to be a transition from a may have that to a must have that. In addition, it doesn't appear that there's any kind of quantifiable way that they've proposed in the current paperwork of actually discussing how are we going to discuss odor spillover into the neighborhoods and how are we going to quantify those issues. Complaint is going to be submitted and then somehow processed in 10 days. There's no constructive way of actually addressing these issues. They more or less have carte blanche on it. I would like to see more quantifiable methods of dealing with odor. I'd like to see them adhering to EPA guidelines for ODTs. And I mean, pardon my pun, but overall, these all come off as bad smells to me, because they claim that they have a background in history inside of maintaining these kinds of systems and keeping odors at bay. However, I mean, I have a background inside of IT, and I also had to build HVAC systems for various other systems to ensure that they didn't get clogged. And all a carbon filter is going to do is remove a majority of gross debris and some smaller particulates. When it comes to something as fine as the scents from a cannabis grow, that's not going to cut it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Cooperative Gardens Com. Start the commission, I guess, yeah.
Hello, this is Carol Segura. I'm a native Humboldt County resident born in Arcata, California. I've visited Lane DeVries over at the bulb farm. And during my visitation there, I witnessed a employee with severe burns and rashes on his arms. And my heart just broke. Knowing that he was spraying and this young man having to be funneled over to a different part of the facilitation area, and knowing that he's still spraying today is unconscionable. I know that I have met and I have friends that have worked there who had similar incidents of rashes and burns and health ailments. How are we supposed to trust this company to do a mega grow in an area that is pristine? The water's leaching out into our beautiful Arcata Bay. And I just say that we need to really look at this long and hard before we make any decisions on anything that this man is proposing. And that's not the half of it. There are children in preschool age, elementary school. There are farms. There's a mushroom growing operation to the southeast of this land. And knowing that mycelium is used to clean up toxins and then discarded, knowing that this mushroom farm is probably picking up a lot of particulates from Roundup, we really do need to catch this guy and fine him with the biggest amount for doing what he's doing to our community thus far. We have lots of neighbors concerned about this, and being a local person, I want this cease and desist on this whole property before anything else is going to be decided. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking at the time, it's almost 8. I'm going to stop for about a 5-minute break. We have a ton of people that want to speak, but I've had some requests to have a quick break. So let's take 5 minutes, then come back, and we'll see you just right about 8. Thank you.
Good. I'm in, and yes,
welcome. How you doing, Noah?
Great. Are we on break right now?
Yeah, we're on break.
Okay, great.
You came in at the right time.
Sorry that I was so late, but I'm glad that. And then when I did try to join, as you gathered it, it was full. It is full.
Yeah. There's a first for everything.
Yep, exactly.
Lots of people talking on this one.
Actually,
everything's went pretty good up till, I mean, it's still going good, but there's just a lot of people in opposition, talking in opposition.
Well, we kind of knew that was coming, but we haven't had one of these in the Zoom era.
This is true. Yeah. All right. I'm going to call the meeting back to order here in just a second. So, you guys ready? All right. We're going to call the meeting back to order and continue with public comment. The next caller is Paula Proctor. Go ahead and star 6 to unmute yourself.
Okay. After my 3 minutes, may my husband speak for his 3 minutes?
If he's next in line.
Great. Okay. Well, good evening, and thanks for giving me the opportunity here to voice my opinion. I'm a registered nurse whose focus has been always about a healthy home and community. And I do have a number of concerns, but I'll start with this one. First of all, it was very concerning that I was only one of a handful of neighbors who received a letter from the county regarding this project in late January. We have a little neighborhood watch group, and when I contacted the group as to what they thought about the project, they were pretty alarmed and upset because they never received any notice. There were a number of untrue statements made by the applicants in regard to environmental, wildlife, and water studies. And that's why I feel that an environmental impact report must be done versus an MND. The site is in Arcata's sphere of influence and the Western Greenbelt Plan. So my understanding is that there's supposed to be a coordination between Arcata and the county to ensure that the integrity of the Greenbelt is maintained. The loss of prime ag land to sand, cement, and greenhouses and extreme use of the water just doesn't seem to fit the bill, really. The view from HSU, our nationally recognized ecologically centered school, will be marred with acres of greenhouses. And my thought was, why not encourage Arcata Land Company to start a CSA instead, which would really benefit everybody because we all need nutritious food. The majority of our neighbors have lived here for over 25 years, raised families, put our hearts and souls into our homes and gardens. We can actually hear the ocean at night. There's lots of chickens and cows during the day and see flocks of birds. And the thought of hearing fans from greenhouses, smelling the odor of cannabis, which is noxious to a lot of our asthmatic neighbors. We talked about light pollution from greenhouses, which will taint our vistas. That's upsetting to us and to our newer neighbors who are just starting their young families. I just really feel like this massive project does not belong so near our neighborhood, nor to the 2 new neighborhoods and park expansion that are slated to be built. And I want you guys to really look in the mirror and ask yourself if you would accept a grow of this magnitude in your backyard. And is this project really for the good of the whole? And just finally,
sorry. All right, next caller. Was your husband going to speak, I guess? If he's going to, then have him speak now, or you'll have to get in line. Okay. Yeah, I don't. So, public 3614. Go ahead. You can get back in line.
Hello, do you got me?
Yes, 3614. Go ahead.
Yes, that's me. Great. Hi, thank you. This is Drew Barber. I'm a cannabis grower out in the Mattole. There's been a lot of great comments tonight. I wanted to underscore some of those comments. In particular, bring up the energy use concept. So the proposed project includes 6 acres of mixed light 2. So we have to be clear about that mixed light 2 is really more or less code for indoor with an occasional skylight. I know some folks will dispute that, but in terms of energy use, that's largely what we're talking about here. And as far as that type of cultivation area, we're talking about I believe it was 5.7 acres of that mixed light 2. So a recent study came out in the academic journal Nature Sustainability. The study was by Summers et al., and it was entitled "The Greenhouse Gas Emissions of Indoor Cannabis Production in the United States." What they found is that indoor mixed light 2 operations use the bulk of their power for humidity and climate control. So, of course, we know how humid the bottoms can be. We know that there's going to be a significant electrical draw. We've already discussed some of the facts of what those numbers are. But to put it into how this study sees it, this study calls the best greenhouse gas emissions of this type of cultivation to be 2,283 kilograms of carbon per kilogram of flower produced. So that compares to an outdoor cultivation operation that the study found produces about 22 kilograms of carbon per kilogram of flower produced. So these numbers are a little confusing, but I just want to draw it out. I want to explain it. So that what that means is that my 10,000 square foot outdoor farm will take 100 years to produce as much carbon footprint as 10,000 square feet of this grow that would produce in one cycle, which is typically 3 to 4 months. But let's look at it cumulatively, because we're talking 5.7 acres. We're not talking 10,000 square feet, which is roughly a quarter acre. So that's 24 times larger than my operation. So what that means is that it's going to use in one cycle 2,400 years of carbon that my outdoor grow would produce. So knowing that this is up to the Board of Commissioners and that it's up to their discretion with this project, I think we have to consider the import of climate change and carbon footprint on the cultivations that we're allowing to get through. And I urge you as the commission to deny this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Public 5798, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, James Flower.
Hello there. So my name's James Flower, and I've lived in Humboldt County for 30 years, and I've lived near Foster Avenue in the Bottom for 21 years. I'm concerned about the labor issues. How much is the applicant going to pay workers? And will there be periodic wage increases? Will there be pension plans, paid sick leave, paid vacation, paid parental leave? What kind of job security will they have? Will the applicant agree not to oppose unionization? When I was with the Public Defender's Office, I had teenage clients whose parents told me that they worked at Sun Valley and they were afraid to take time off to come to court for fear of being fired. Will the applicant punish workers for taking time off for vital family matters? And finally, I believe the applicant got kind of busted years ago for employing undocumented workers. And I'm wondering what the applicant's policies are now around immigrant workers. So until these questions get satisfactorily answered, I'm against the project, and I'm inclined to be against it on environmental grounds too, although I don't claim to be any kind of an expert on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Public 5798. *6 to unmute yourself.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Hannah White. I'm a cannabis cultivator out here in Willow Creek. Tonight, I would ask you to do the work and act with empathy for the majority of the community that is spoken so far this evening. And use your discretion to bridle this project. Humboldt County is leading in annual licenses in the state. Humboldt County is leading in cannabis culture in the state. We ask for your leadership in responsible cannabis cultivation. In the general plan, this parcel is agricultural land. I'm sure at some point it switched to zoning to be the mixed industrial we see it as today during its logging eras. I don't think that that zoning is recognized as a benefit to that community or to that piece of land. Let's let cannabis bring back valuable agricultural land to this piece of property and restore value to our rural communities. And yeah, this project just seems a little bit too big for its britches. I ask for you to seek parity for the other zoning designations within the county. We see an 8-acre cap. That's big, and it's small compared to multinational corporation flower production, which is what it is experienced in its iteration right now. I ask you to, let's not let cannabis bail out this situation. Like it's sad to see that Sun Valley is struggling perhaps, but that is the nature of multinational corporate agricultural endeavors. They're not good for small rural communities, not good for competing with those same rural communities in Colombia. You know, those people are getting paid a day what someone's making an hour here. So yeah, we need to consider our climate. This has got a huge carbon footprint. Thank you, Drew, for saying all of that. It seems like the water is going to be impacted. That's a huge draw on those wells. There's no way that there's been enough consideration for the water impact to the neighborhood. And yeah, the fans are noisy, super, super noisy. I grow cannabis. I have fans. I know how to read these decibel meters. There's no way you're going to have that many acres of cannabis and not hear it. The neighbors are going to hear it far and wide. Yeah, so please, I'm asking for your discretion this evening, and please bring this project up to reason.
Thank you. Next caller is Joan Edwards, excuse me. *6 to unmute yourself. Are you there, Joan? Okay, I'll move on to the next, which is Kim.
Hello.
Hold on. Are you there, Joan?
Yes, I am. Sorry. So I'm Joan Edwards. I live on 27th Street, and I'm here to express my horror at the plan to approve a 23-acre grow just outside the Arcata city limits, less than 1/8 of a mile from my burgeoning neighborhood. In addition to the many families and children living here, there are many households with seniors. There's a planned annexation that will add additional families and a long-term care facility. In addition, the city plans a soccer field literally 1 field away from this enormous grow. There are several schools, churches, and recreational areas. This is not the environment for a large industrial grow, and such possibilities should not be planned into neighborhoods. Consider your own neighborhood and how you would feel. Our concerns are light pollution, both from the 192 hoop houses and from the security lights, which will be required to protect such a valuable crop. The noise pollution, this is a damp and cold environment, definitely not ideal for pot. They will need at least 1 fan and likely 2 in each of the 192 hoop houses. Parton Lane, which lives near the hoop houses that grow flowers, hear those fans currently all the time. I have friends there. Energy usage will be huge in this damp, cold environment when we are trying to reduce our carbon footprint. Crime, a valuable crop breeds temptation. So close to families and neighborhoods, this is not the place to put this big of a farm. A permanent destruction of 23 acres of prime ag land because they plan to level and sand over the plot and place raised beds. This will permanently impact 23 acres of prime land. Water pollution. 1 million square feet of marijuana will have great needs, especially in raised beds. A depletion of the water table invites salt intrusion. Many in this area rely on wells. How is it such a profitable crop can be raised with free water, and especially putting at risk so many small homeowners' water needs? It seems to me such a type of an operation should be paying for that water. And odor. There are many in my neighborhood with respiratory conditions that will be exacerbated by the odor from this crop. Such a crop should be grown away from neighborhoods, away from an area that's so impacted with people. Please do not make this mistake in deciding to growing Arcata's future. This grow will permanently alter the green belt that sits just outside its border.
You have 10
I
seconds.
urge you to seek input from the Arcata citizens in the future of Arcata's green belt. And I urge.
Next caller is Kim Puckett.
I would like to start by saying I just got a couple of emails from people who cannot get on via telephone and wanted me to let you know that they're being denied access to the meeting. So my name is Kim Puckett and we live 800 feet downwind of this project. We have received no notification at any point in time regarding this. Our home and our garden are in full view of the site. I also want to say, I think it's really unfortunate that Mr. DeVries' business is failing, but is that our responsibility? Is it the community responsibility to bail out a failing business? Then I go on to say, I want to ask all of you, the state of California says that planning commissioners shall act in the public interest. Is this project in the public interest of Arcata Bottom residents and Humboldt residents? Is this in the best interest of the public welfare, which is something Mr. Ford says is of utmost importance in these decisions? The proposed project is only possible due to a loophole in the cannabis ordinance. If it was zoned according to the general plan, it would never be allowed. The parcel has not been used for industrial purposes in a number of decades. And for the past couple of decades, it's only been used for ag purposes. If not for that long outdated designation, this project would not be allowed. The study itself, as many have pointed out, is rife with errors. But I also want to go on to talk about something else. California State Parks data shows that over 900 people live within a half mile of this. It's concerning from an equity lens when you look at the demographics of this project, comparing them with the Hydesville Lost Boys and the Blue Lake Costa project. The area within half mile of the Arcata site shows 40.9% of residents live in poverty. Do we that live near this huge commercial grow not deserve the same consideration as the wealthier and far less populated areas of the 1 acre Hydesville project, 74 people and a poverty rate of 12.9%, and the 10,000 square foot Blue Lake project with 159 people within half mile and a 3.8% poverty rate? Are we not afforded this simply because of an antiquated, outdated zoning designation, one conflicting with the county's own general plan? How is approving this in the interest of public welfare? Anyone who thinks this operation will not be detrimental to the quality of life for those of us living here does not understand the beauty and uniqueness of this area. Please vote no on this. Thank you.
Elise Peterson, please. *6 to unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Elise and I am adamantly opposed to this project for multiple reasons, but for time constraints, I will focus on the odors. I know this has been mentioned already, but while the study cites a mitigation measure to manage odors, there will still be a significant impact to sensitive receptors in the project areas, and an EIR should have been completed to address the issue. The study did not provide a copy of the odor control plan that would be implemented as part of the proposed mitigation measure AQ1 to address odor issues. And given that, there can be no assurance that the odors can or will be managed. I know that there was mention of an odor control plan presented earlier tonight, so I do expect that this be circulated sooner than later. And as other residents have mentioned, we were left in the dark previously. So hopefully that's circulated to the neighborhood. Additionally, while the study claims that the project would not produce significant quantities of criteria pollutants during construction or operation, it does clearly state in supporting documents that there will be an unavoidable odor impact. The study also states, and I quote directly, as a result, the project would not expose sensitive receptors to substantial pollutant concentrations and impacts would be less than significant. However, the Humboldt County Commercial Cannabis Draft Environmental Impact Report did find that cannabis-related odors result in a significant and unavoidable impact, despite the use of setback, odor prevention equipment, and prohibition on burning plant materials. The statement in the study that there are no sensitive receptors within the vicinity of the project except scattered rural residential is completely false. My family lives on a parcel on 27th Street, and we have multiple asthmatics sensitive to cannabis whose health will be directly impacted by this project. I don't think that asthmatics, just because you can't see someone as an asthmatic, I don't think they should be discriminated against. As mentioned by another resident, there are 922 people who currently live within a half mile of the proposed project site, including defined sensitive receptors of 165
You have 30 seconds left.
and 53 seniors, not taking into account the proposed senior community that is to be developed. In short, grows like this do not belong here, and I hope you see that schools, churches, and many, many residents are strongly opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller is Cindy Stetzel.
Hello, thank you.
Hi.
Sorry, it's me. I understand that an element of our neighbors' objectives is a not in my backyard viewpoint. I have to sympathize with that. I've lived in my neighborhood here for 6 years. And when I did move here, there was a proposed large apartment building that could have been built. We were assured that that wouldn't happen, but it was a possibility. And then right after we moved in, it was. So I understand that and I sympathize with those viewpoints. The simple fact is we employ 450 real people at Sun Valley. For the general public, think about that employee count. What's one of the first things you're asked when you make a new acquaintance? For me, it's where do you work? When I'm asked where I work and I say Sun Valley, the very next question is, oh, do you know so-and-so? The impact of losing employment for 450 households means the impact will absolutely be in every one of our backyards. It is unimaginable that our neighbors will not personally know a family who has to change jobs, pivot in their careers, and for many, leave the area. There is the real economic impact to our county of losing the revenue Sun Valley provides to the county, but we cannot disregard the emotional toll of watching our friends and families suffer economic hardship and the personal loss we will feel if our friends and family are forced to leave this diverse and beautiful area we all know, love, and want to preserve. Let's work together and figure out how to make this project work instead of tearing each other down and trying to find the flaws. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Next caller is Daryl Cotton.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Daryl Cotton. I've been growing cannabis for 30 years, and I'm a medical cannabis patient. And all over the state, in the 58 different water districts, I've seen a lot of CEQA applications where the water use that's stated far is under representative of what the actual use will be. So my purpose for weighing in, because I really can't say one way or another how you feel about building 1 million square foot of commercial cannabis canopy, but the numbers don't lie. What was submits that there's going to be 52 acre feet per year of water used. My modest analysis comes up to more like 138.7 acre feet per year. And you can see my summary. It's at 151farmers.org. I have a whole section called Can Agreed, and section 11.41A is this project. So I'm not picking on this one project, it's happening up and down the state. So my solution is, and you should be mandating this, is that ultrasonic flow meters be used so that you can tell exactly what the water use is. And if that client, that applicant goes over 52 acre feet per year, there should be serious penalties attached to that on a per gallon basis. So I would ask that any, not just Humboldt, but any county that's licensing commercial grow, mandate that ultrasonic flow meters be installed with real-time upload, not a paddle wheel that you call in what your flow rates are, what your water use is, something that you can monitor and quantify. Good luck on this. It's a huge issue that you have before you. I know there's passions on both directions, but from a strictly analytical standpoint, water is a finite resource, and we cannot afford to lose the mandatory amounts of water that we need for every other application in our lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy Zealous, please. *6 to unmute. Tracy, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Hi, I have lived on Wyatt Lane for 25 years. My kitchen window views the building. I believe that you are calling the processing building. It's tan, it has a couple blue stripes. I can see the whole building from my window. I've watched geese land in that field for 25 years. I know they're not nesting there and having babies, but they do stop over in the fall and the spring to rest on their way north. I echo everything that's already been said. The light pollution, the smell, the sound. We are devastated to hear this proposal. This is the size of something that belongs on Interstate 5, not on the edge of a small university town. How will parents feel bringing their children to college if this is the only smell they can smell in town? As Elise Peterson focused on the smell, I do believe it is hard to contain that size of a grow of smell. I am sorry that Sun Valley is suffering financially. I know they've brought a lot of money to the area, and to touch on Cindy Seltzer's employee concerns and economic concerns, I imagine that once everyone's vaccinated, that as COVID goes down, that public celebrations will grow again and their income will improve, if not exceed previous profits, because we will all be so excited to celebrate again. My questions are, what if this is approved and the neighborhood does start coughing as the residents in Santa Barbara County have? What if there is noise pollution and smell pollution? All the things you're saying won't happen. What if we all have significant problems with this? What will you do to help us? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Next caller, Marissa Day. Marissa, are you there? *6 to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, it's Marisa Day, and I live in the neighborhood, and I have a question for everyone who is willing to pass this. How many of you involved in wanting this project live on the west side of Arcata that would be affected by this grow? Can anybody answer that? Hello?
I'm not going to interact with you. Just speak what you want to speak.
Okay, well, that's basically, I agree with most of the comments that people have made in the past, but it is in our backyard. It is a massive project. I'm not against marijuana, but this just seems very greedy. And also with Sun Valley, I know they have other businesses as well. So I don't think that this is the sole way for them to make a living. And I just want to say, please really consider everything this is taken into account and everything you've heard tonight. And just don't go for the tax dollars. Please consider everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Public 2514. Star 6 to.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, fine. This is James Cotton. Our house is located 800 feet to the east of this project, and we were one of many who were not ever notified. I'm a retired federal wildlife research biologist with over 10,000 hours in the field conducting bird and mammal surveys. After reviewing the biological assessment and the initial study, my conclusion is the county cannot adopt any stance regarding the environmental impacts based on the study, as the study does not hold up to scientific scrutiny. The study has failed to disclose survey methodology. The sample size was too small to be statistically significant, and despite a literature review to identify potential bird species within the study area, at least 14 species were not included. See my comment. Literature citations were also missing from the report. The most obvious omission from the literature review and observation were geese. Geese were not observed during the survey because the survey was conducted outside the migration period, January through April. This contradiction to the statement that the study was conducted during the appropriate times. During the peak of migration, upwards of 60,000 Canadian and Aleutian geese are commonly seen foraging in the pasture of the Humboldt Bay region. The study says no migration corridors were detected, yet in fact, the entire county coastline is a migration corridor. What will be the impact for the species that use this site? It's easy to surmise that the geese and other birds will not land atop the 1 million square feet of plastic hoop houses to forage. The cumulative impact of this project, of the 5 acres adjoining and the 60 acres of greenhouse also adjoining, and the yet unpermitted 160,000 square feet cultivation site, in addition to the 30,000 square foot nursery, are unknown, as the study in the county has both failed to address any cumulative impact on any topics in the study. This project will have an adverse social impact on our neighborhoods that cannot be mitigated. The conversion of ag lands to the 9th largest grow in the country will compromise the well-being of the neighborhood and also remove 26 acres of ag land for carbon sequestration. This permit needs an EIR at least. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Tim Krokenberg. Sorry on the name.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yes, my name is Tim Krokenberg. I'm a graduate of Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and I've been the head agronomist for Sun Valley and worked with Lane DeVries for the last 20 years. I can tell you that since I've joined Sun Valley, it's been the most amazing experience of my life. We have drastically reduced all of our usages of any sort of pesticides or chemicals to a very low degree. And we are highly committed to, furthering the beneficial impact of the local economy and to our constituents. I called, when I moved here 20 years ago, I really wanted to raise my family here and be here forever. And I've known Lane ever since I moved here. I know Lane and the Sun Valley community, we care about our neighbors, and we will do whatever it takes to make sure that we take care of our community, our neighbors, and our surrounding neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next caller is 7708. Star 6 to unmute. Seven 708. All right, move on. The next caller is Bloxburg.
Hello, and thank you for taking the time to hear me. How to turn the volume down. My first concern is Sun Valley owner is a Dutch immigrant, which is world renowned for growing all types of flowers. So I'm a little perplexed why he went into a deal with Headwaters. The problem I have with Headwaters is they are a distribution company. They're a cultivation company. In the state of California, we're only allowed 4 licenses. And if Headwaters has hit their maximum, they're now outsourcing by probably taking a management position and going to control this grow. What problems does that create for all of us small growers? By the way, I am a small grower in Bloxburg. I have a permit. The problem with that is this: if Headwaters controls 23 acres of cannabis cultivation plus distribution and manufacture, they'll put every other humble manufacturer grower at a disadvantage because they can control the price. This monopoly would be unfair to all of us. The industry standard is $20 an hour. The industry standard in the flower market is minimum wage. So we have a problem here with our local people aren't going to get paid what our local growers would pay them. And it's a branding of Humboldt. Walmart is known as the cheap and deep store to buy stuff. This is what it would do to our branding of Humboldt County, which is world famous. We have a brand in this county that is known for small craft cannabis cultivation. We should rather allow 92 families to cultivate 10,000 square feet and keep the craft cannabis growing in Humboldt County as opposed to a massive thing here. And my biggest concern is mega grows versus small grows. My planning commission meeting was the last one to be denied because of COVID. I've been listening to these meetings for a year now. Every mega grow seems to have an advantage opposed to us small 10,000 foot grows. And I say that because I applied the same week they applied, and they went to referrals in 2017. I wasn't in referrals until 2019. And when my referrals came back, I had not one issue. So how did it take a 10,000 square foot small farm 3 years to get referrals? And this mega grow was put in. You have a strong bias. So think of our economy, think of the small grower. If you approve this, and I support cannabis, you are slapping a face to all of us small growers and our brand of our Humboldt County. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Public 0413. Star 6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Luann, and I live on Wyatt, which is about 1,500 feet from the back. In fact, as the call started, I watched the sunset over this parcel. And what I wanted to add to the administrative record is, first of all, when I was going through all of the documents, it looks like this plan was started in 2017. And I hear the comments from the applicant saying that he's concerned about the community, but the actions don't really jive with that when the neighborhood was literally not given any notice. I never heard about this grow until it was on the Lost Coast Outpost. So you say that you're concerned about your community, but we are literally given like weeks to digest and try to make sense of the information that's been at your disposal for years. So it doesn't build a lot of trust that what you're saying in all of the permit conditions are actually going to happen.
So I know that I don't have time to go through all of the concerns. I do echo all the concerns of my neighbors because this is going to impact my day-to-day 24/7. Everybody else that has a voting right in this, they get to go away from this. They're not going to be living it every day. So my first concern, it was kind of addressed by Rodney, and I do appreciate that, but it seems like there's a loophole in the odor control, because when you say that there's not going to be any odor, that doesn't make any sense to me as being possible. And so when I'm looking at the map of this grow, the permit is only for APN 506231021 and 505151011. But there's 8 parcels that look like they're part of this processing facility. And so if we're getting away from the odor control by saying that it's only applicable to these 2 parcels, I personally am not going to be okay with this unless all 8 parcels are going to be covered by the conditional requirements of this permit. That's my first one. And then the second biggest concern that I have is going to be the lighting. In the report of the staff report, it looks like it opens it up completely by saying that the lumens for the security lights, I'm not concerned as much about the grow houses, but the security lights have a minimum lumens that are going to be required for security. Who determines that? If the company decides that the lumens are not enough, do they just have random access to just put more light out there that is definitely going to affect my light pollution? Because right now I have a beautiful dark sky. I see the stars. I don't see any of the lighting that's going to be necessary to protect their valuable crop.
Your time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public 1260. Thank you. Are you there, 1260?
Hi, good evening. I would just like to say that I do support this project for economic development within our county with an environmental impact report done and a non-diversionary water source in place. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Public 9072. Star 6 to unmute yourself. There you go. Go ahead.
Hey folks, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Riley Morrison. I'm calling from Willow Creek. I would just like to say that I am opposed to this project. All the speakers that were in opposition prior to me, I just want to echo their voice and the neighbors. And it's quite obvious that the community does not want this. And I hope the Planning Commission takes all that into account and makes the right choice moving forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jennifer Taylor.
Hi, thank you very much. I also agree with the speaker that just spoke that many people have expressed a valid opposition to not only the occurrence of this grow, but also the supposed scientific findings. And in particular, I'm interested in what justified a negative declaration of environmental impact when there's at least 7 or 8 different areas in which the local and overall environment will be directly and indirectly impacted. Both long-term and current issues are important. I agree with the previous speaker who said the floral industry will come back. I miss my flowers. If you had put those flowers locally on sale, we would have purchased them. They didn't have to rot. That's a very poor excuse to permit this mega grow. Thank you, Planning Commission, for listening to the community. Thank you very much. I don't know how to sign off.
Julie Ross, please. We'll take care of that.
Yes, hi. I just want to say that this project threatens to adversely affect 3 essential items humans need to live, which is air, water, and food. And I'd like to address 2 of these. I'm not an expert in these areas, but this is the information that I found that concerns me. First of all, with air, as has been mentioned, there's a concern about the stench odor associated with the cannabis that may trigger allergies or asthma attacks. Individuals with diabetes are instructed to walk every day, but because of the bad air quality due to the cannabis odor, they will have to be confined to their houses during harvest time, which was stated in the report June 23rd through October 27th, which happens to be Arcata's best weather to be outdoors. And there's also fear of increased trips to the emergency room and doctor's visits. The staff report states that the odor from the cultivation process will be controlled with the carbon filtration unit. In Sonoma County, where the cannabis farms are using the same filtration units, they've received 730 cannabis-related complaints last year. And of these, 65% was related to odor. And according to the Sonoma County's cannabis program manager, who goes on to say that the odor has caused headaches for local students at the high school. And I want to bring out that there are 2 charter schools located near Foster Avenue. The residents in Sonoma County say that they must stuff pillows under their doors to block odors coming from the nearby cannabis farm. Is this how we are to live our lives? Even though they have 10 days to rectify complaints, we have to suffer during that time. The second item necessary for life is water. And according to the state's Water Resource Control Board, Office of Public Participation and Division of Water Rights, California experienced a dry 2019-2020 water year across much of the state, reporting its 3rd driest water year in 127 years of record, which raised concern about the likelihood of a multi-year drought and the prospect of future water savings responses. According to the United States Drought Monitor, Humboldt County, as of February 18, 2021, is in abnormally dry conditions.
30 seconds.
The staff report states that the project irrigation report will use 1 million to 4 million gallons monthly during April and October. And even though they claim it's less than the flower usage, I have concerned about this. And I just want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Public 5375.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Jones, CEO of Aloha Humboldt, craft cannabis farm in Willow Creek. Along with the resounding voice of our community, I strongly oppose this project. I believe that the scale of this project is not in the best interest of Humboldt County, and I implore you to support the small independent cannabis producers that make up the majority of cannabis operators in Humboldt County and deny this project. Doing so would support independent cannabis businesses' economic viability by maintaining the community's core values focused on Humboldt's craft reputation. Projects of this scale are clearly attempting to corporatize and commodify Humboldt's cannabis industry. Many large-scale efforts towards this corporatization and consolidation are well underway outside of Humboldt County. The question today is whether Humboldt will choose to resist these efforts as they become more apparent. The capacity for Humboldt to stand by the principles expressed in its land use ordinances will play a critical role in realizing a larger vision for Humboldt cannabis based on small, craft, independent producers. Supporting this model will bolster economic development and success within Humboldt County. It is of the utmost importance that you establish a clearly defined line on the appropriate scale for projects. These corporatized models focus solely on financial gains, ignore what will protect the legacy and cultural heritage of our county, and only benefit well-funded corporate ventures and leave the smaller independent producers behind. This project crosses the line. It only invites more corporate ventures, and it dilutes our craft value that will sustain our cannabis community if protected. Humboldt does not need large agricultural models to thrive, nor do we want this quantity or over quality mentality to represent us. While this large-scale cultivation is occurring elsewhere around the state, the existence of these industrial-scale projects in traditional agricultural regions only increases the importance of preserving Humboldt's reputation for small-scale craft independent production. While Humboldt will never compete with traditional agricultural regions in terms of size and scale, we are well positioned to compete on craft quality, terroir, and a global reputation for high-quality artisan cannabis. The aforementioned principles have led Humboldt County. Yes, please deny this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller is Catherine Malia.
Good evening. I am Catherine Melia. Let me start off by saying that just because something is legal in the state of California, it does not mean that it should be allowed into communities. Humboldt County has the authority to dictate what businesses do and do not come into practice in our area. Much less controversial and completely legal large box stores have been denied access to our county for years. Many businesses are critically impacted by the COVID epidemic and are facing failure. This unfortunate situation does not mean that the county should allow activities that are strongly opposed by the majority of the community. It would be like allowing every food service business to procure a liquor license to lessen the financial impact caused by the pandemic. So the issue of whether Sun Valley's and Arcata Land Company's development is legal has no bearing on the fact that the county could and should deny the operation. Sadly, it appears the sole driving factor for the approval of the proposal would be exclusively monetary gain for the county itself, as pointed out by Lane himself, and not for the betterment of the people or the economy of the communities. If, as Lane stated, the primary focus of the proposal was indeed for the continuation of the ability to grow regular flowers, then why is there no scheduled and agreed date for the returning to their normal, original, primary operation? The focus and pride of Humboldt County for years has been keeping small businesses alive and the welfare of its people as a whole. Regarding the drastic increase in traffic, let's not forget that the traffic will drive directly in front of Pacific Union Elementary School, less than a mile away from the site. The implications that the necessary energy use would not be impactful is simply untrue. PG&E themselves just sent a notice that they are restructuring their fee schedule to encourage less energy usage, not more. It would be absolutely disheartening to see Humboldt County essentially sell out its community for monetary gain that will not benefit the population in large as a whole. As I read over the letters sent into the Planning Commission, the vast majority were in opposition to Sun Valley's proposal. In contrast, the few people in support were nearly all employees or affiliates of Sun Valley and not members of the immediate surrounding community, or for the most part, Arcata. For the sake of our community as a whole, I urge you to deny Sun Valley and Arcata Land Company's proposal to further damage our economy, ecology, and community. Please remember, it's your job to protect the interests of the public, and the amount of participants in opposition have made it clear that this is not in the best interest of the public welfare. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller is Davey Hewitt. *6 to unmute yourself. You there, Davey? Move on to the next. The next caller then is Sarah Tropkis.
Hi, this is Sean O'Connor, Sarah's husband. I've got many concerns about this project. I second the opinions of, I'd say, maybe 99% of the callers here are opposed to this. I come at this from multiple angles. I've worked as a scientist for years, and I can tell just from, looking at the documents in the last couple days, there's so many holes in this. It's like Swiss cheese. And I'm actually a little shocked that such a huge project would try to justify their claim with such a faulty argument. Secondly, I want to talk about the jobs. So I've read that there's something from maybe 75 jobs created to maybe 116. Well, how many jobs are going to be lost when small farmers, the local economy is going to lose out on basically the backbone that has built our industry? You're going to turn your back on these people and support a business that employs people at minimum wage. And in the very recent past, employed undocumented labor. Do we want to believe that a company that would do this has seen the light and is actually going to pay a living wage? And are these 450 jobs at Sun Valley, are those employees really secure just by this project? I mean, there's a lot of businesses that were hurt by COVID, a lot of small farms, but we're doing our best to grind through this. And can you not do that without this project? I mean,
30 seconds.
Okay. I also want to touch on the taxes, because I think maybe that is the carrot that they're dangling out there. But what I saw in their slides said that they currently pay $800,000 a year in taxes, and it's going to go up to $2 million. Well, that's very little for such a huge project. How much is going to be lost when all the family farms that go out of business can't pay their taxes?
Your time's up. Thank you. Next caller is Kylie Mattingly. Unmute yourself, Kylie.
Hey, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and voice my opposition about this project. The first issue I'd like to address is odor. While I've heard a lot of people talk about carbon filtration and other similar methods of odor control within the cultivation facility, I haven't heard anybody speak about the fact that product and flower material is going to have to be moved from the cultivation areas to the processing facility, which would obviously, in my opinion, expose it to the open air and the coastal breezes of Humboldt County. They blow directly into these residential areas of Arcata. And that would, I'd imagine that would blow plant material and dust and plant dander into the areas where people are living. The second issue I'd like to talk about, which I've heard other people say, is just some sort of a sensible climate policy that I think the overwhelming majority of Humboldt County residents would support. And it seems really odd to have such an energy consuming grow in one of the most foggiest, overcast locations in one of the sunniest states in the country. It seems really weird. And I think that if this project is approved, that in the future, we would look back on the decisions made here as being terribly short-sighted as far as climate policy goes, any sort of sensible climate policy. And then the last thing that I would like to say is that although I do support cannabis, and I know that there have been other projects of this size that have been approved in the state of California and elsewhere, such as Santa Barbara and Salinas, I don't believe that any of those other projects are as close to residential areas as this. So I do urge you to reject this proposal and just to think about the families and the people that are going to be
30 seconds.
the people that are going to be living so close to this project. I don't feel like it is the right place for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, Paula Proctor.
Hello. There's just a couple of things that I noticed were being said in the presentation. I just wanted to point out the area that is designated, they're saying is already zoned for industrial, but it was never cannabis was never grown there. So I don't see how that that needs to be studied, and that's a completely different thing. Also, from the presentation from the land company, I heard the word they don't anticipate any problems. I heard that anticipation used quite a bit through that. And anticipation, that doesn't really work in terms of are things going to really be implemented or not, or will there be problems? So an environmental protection report has to be implemented, and other studies too, to make sure that no one's just assuming or anticipating there won't be any problems. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Howard Dorfing. I hope I didn't butcher that name. I apologize. Go ahead. Howard, are you there? And muted.
Muted, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened there. My name is Howard Dorfling. I am actually the head of human resources safety for the Sun Valley Group. I have worked on and off for the Sun Valley Group for over 15 years. I recently came back to this great position. I am a Humboldt County resident. I've spent a lot of times and energy and efforts. I'm here to talk to and show my support for the company this time. I've heard a lot of people that have scripted opinions. Maybe they haven't heard the presentation, maybe they haven't read the entire proposal, so I would encourage everybody to do that. I'd also encourage everybody to understand that this is a concern for some neighborhood people, but the company has had an excellent reputation with the neighborhood, landowners, property owners, schools, and everybody for a lot of years. The company currently works with OSHA, ICE, Department of Homeland Security, follows all state, federal, labor laws, safety rules, federal and state inspections. We pay all legally employed people all the proper taxes. We have a weekly payroll. We bring jobs to the community, and they're much more than minimum wage jobs. Sure, we have company that has minimum wage positions. We have many people far past minimum wage, and we compete with the cannabis group in terms of high quality labor. And we pay the same for high quality labor in many cases. So we are, like any competitive business, we want the best people in agribusiness, in agriculture, hardworking people, honest people. The average employee at Sun Valley has probably worked there over 7 years. Many have worked over 15 and 20 years. That's some real job security. For full-time team members, that's what we call our employees, we offer benefits. We offer 401k, health benefits, weekly pay. We have a lot of stuff going on that's very positive for the community. We don't have people that do anything wrong. I just want to let everybody know that if anybody can really do this properly, they have the infrastructure and all of the management to really see this through and really keep everybody happy and done professionally. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next caller is Chris Dart.
Hi, good evening. My name is Chris Dart. I'm a citizen of Arcata. I just wanted to say I think Sun Valley is a good company who makes a significant contribution to our economy and has for a number of years. Sun Valley is a major employer in the area, and this project will add a significant number of jobs. And I think this project should be approved, and I support this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Public 7708. There you go.
Hello, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. I live on 27th Street. I've been here for over 30 years. In the 1980s, right before I moved here, I heard from many people in the community that the fields along 27th Street were being sprayed by the air with pesticides. Now, I don't know for sure if those fields were at that time owned by Sun Valley, but I think so. At any rate, you know, this was a terrible process. Community residents insisted for its own well-being that crazy, dangerous operation be stopped, and it was. Then the company, I believe Sun Valley, built a massive hedge along the road, which extends all the way down, so that no one could see that they were still using pesticides, but in a more controlled way. I never knew exactly how, but everyone knew that they were using pesticides. And they continued that same process, building, you know, either hedges or a long row of trees, so you can't see what they're doing on their property, which is suspicious. I used to look out at beautiful fields, and now I can't see anything. Everything's blocked in. In the early 1990s, some developer wanted to put 100 houses down the street, more or less right where this new mega grow is supposed to happen, right in the Fragile Bottoms, which was not allowed for, should not have been allowed for numerous environmental reasons. And after a long fight with the City Hall Planning Commission, community residents insisted, again, for its own well-being, that it be stopped. That's when Sun Valley expanded its operation. Apparently, things must have gone well for Mr. DeVries, because he's continued to buy other properties and propose lots of other building projects in Samoa and elsewhere. Now he wants to create this industrial cannabis grow right down my street again. And for all the reasons I've heard tonight from those complaining about this insanely huge project, we residents of this Westwood community who've been living here, some of us for well over 30 years, are insisting that it be stopped. I mean, come on, at a time of continuous drought in California, a future of significant climate change, why are we going to sacrifice such a valuable piece of agricultural land, which will one day be a godsend to our county, and allow it to be degraded like this for short-term financial gains? We have to stop this craziness right now. Thank you.
Thank you. William Padilla. Go ahead, unmute yourself, *6. Okay, moving on to the next, David. *6 to unmute.
Yeah, hi, my name is David Parrish. Yeah, hi, my name is David Allen Parrish.
Welcome. Are you there, David? You were. Unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
About that.
No problem. Hi, my name is David Allen Parrish Jr. I'm a grower in the Van Dusen Valley of approximately 12,000 square feet. My family is a 5th generation family in this area. I would like to step back and look at a little bit different of a view than everybody else has been talking about here tonight, and look at the past of the economy here in Humboldt County. First, we started with gold, then logging, fishing, and now we're to cannabis. We all must ask ourselves, where are the jobs? I asked the commissioners, I want you guys to really think about this. You guys denied the windmill project in Rio Dell. You guys are giving the fish farm a hard time in Samoa to get going. If this project was outdoor, as a community, I believe we may look at this project differently. I don't think it would impact our markets as much if maybe it was outdoor compared to the 5.7 basically indoors, the way I consider it. I think that it maybe should be looked at to maybe trade this in for an outdoor grow instead of a indoor grow, because that's what it seems like to me. I do believe Mr. Lane DeVries is probably the man to do this operation due to him having the people to do the project and obviously the money. Thank you guys for letting me speak.
Thank you. Next caller is Public 0073. *6. There you go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I just want to take a moment to urge the Planning Commission to closely review modified condition number 3 on a few details. First, the modified condition number 3 currently says the project will not result in, quote, continued discernible odor, end quote. And it's important to quantify what continued means in this language and context. Second, the modified condition number 3 seems to obligate the county and planning and building department to significant workload and associated taxpayer expense to investigate odor and other complaints. I would urge the Planning Commission and department to require the owner occupant to directly pay for all activities, inspection, evaluation, record keeping, and others around complaints and responses and other compliance activities by county staff to avoid externalizing costs for impacts onto local residents. Third, there should be defined timeframes on the planning and building department's review of, quote, the owner occupant plan to address the odor, and deadlines to implement the plan and final review that the odor complaint has been solved. As good neighbors with confidence in their odor control technologies, project owners should be willing to incorporate these details as a cost of doing this kind of potentially impactful business, just as other industries do. We have too many past examples of placing the burden of private company environmental noncompliance on impacted people, in this case, county taxpayers, and we need to be more rigorous in our attention to these details in permitting conditions. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Next caller is Public 7108. Are you there?
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Bonnie Blackberry. I'm calling to oppose this permit. The first thing is 23 acres. Like, wow, that's just been shocking to everybody. And then having it so close to all these neighbors. I think those are like huge things. And then we can get into the whole energy source and where Humboldt County is supposed to be going green and dealing with the climate crisis and trying to cut back the carbon footprint, and then having these mixed light, which is basically indoor and greenhouse, and all the energy that takes. And then there's the security light and what that's going to do to the night sky. This seems like there's a whole lot of questions and concerns that hasn't really been addressed, but planning commissioners have the discretion to do the right thing and do what's best for the interest of the public, not just to make some tax money for the county. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next caller is Charles Butterworth.
Hi, I'm Charles Butterworth. I own an 8-unit residential complex on Bay School Road, less than 2,000 feet away from the proposed project. I am a Humboldt County native. 2 years ago, Sun Valley leased the adjacent 34-acre parcel from my house to grow flowers. They sprayed the entire field multiple times with Roundup without notifying any adjacent property owners. So my tenants' children were breathing in a known cancer-causing chemical because Sun Valley was breaking the law. I am against this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, Michelle D. Michelle, are you there? We're not sure. Okay. They're saying Josh, our technical guy, is saying there's an issue with whatever version you're using, and okay, we're gonna try and do something so that we can allow you to talk. Go ahead and.
Hi, my name is Michelle, and I'm a Humboldt State student. I'm not working there, but I know many of my friends and my neighbors are working there. And I always heard they are provide very flexible hours. And because of the flexible hours, they were able to go to school full times. And I think it was great. And I know many people who are against that because they have no impact if the business not operating. But many students and senior citizens and stay-home moms, they are depending on the business and depending on it to have the jobs. So, and I think it is great if Humboldt can continue operating can support the cannabis grow, and this could be a potential and a future branding of Humboldt County. Thank you.
Sorry. Next caller is Darren, please. Are you there,
Hey, this is Darren Ferreira. Are you there?
Yes, go ahead, please.
All right. I'm sorry, but first of all, I've got to laugh at all the employees that he's had call in to talk so great about him. I'm a 3rd-generation dairy farmer. I've lived south of him for the last 35 years. We get all of his runoff. We get all of his pollution. He was recently sprayed 20 acres just quarter mile from me with standing water, and he sprayed it with Roundup. So what do you think that water runoff that is polluted with Roundup is going to do? It goes through all of our fields, and from our fields, it goes to our sloughs. From our sloughs, it pollutes our fish. It pollutes our oyster farms that we have at the end of Lanphier Road. The employees of 450 people, yeah, that's great and dandy. But 95% of those employees are immigrants that have came over here from Mexico on a 6-month green card that are on a visa and are stuffed in these houses. One of these houses is owned by a retired dairy farmer and has been word that there is 15 beds in a 3-bedroom house. The beds are stacked side by side from each other. And that's how these immigrants are living, paid less than minimum wage. Now, his people in his offices yes, they might get a good pay. They have 401k. The head honchos might have 401k and good pay. But the people that pick his flowers and work day in and day out, and the people that are going to be working this grow that he has are not getting paid that. And they are not good people. I have druggies that park at the end of my road, that fly up and down my road at 40 to 50 miles an hour in front of my dairy with cattle going across my road. I have working dogs. I have 2 families with children down here. I have equipment, and I have to yell at them all the time. Now, I have followed these people back up the road. Where do they go? They go back to the bulb farm. They come down here on their lunch. They shoot up their heroin, their cocaine, whatever. And that is what they do. And we're going to bring more of that. I agree 100% with everybody else that says they are against this. I'm 100% against this. This was the worst thing that he could ever do. I get it. We all have to make it through this pandemic, but this is the wrong way to do it.
Thank you. The next is Hummingbud Farms. Oh, I thought that's who that we just had. Okay. I'm sorry. Next caller is William Padilla.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I don't know how to express this, but I hear a lot of misinformation coming from a lot of different people, and I just wanted to say, Lane cares about his community. He cares about his workers. Nobody at that company makes less than minimum wage. Part of our guiding principles, one of the main things we have these guiding principles we go by every week that we use on the farm. And one of the main ones is treat neighbors the way you want to be treated. We express that in our meetings every day. It's like one of our safety topics is drive slow down the road. He put up a speed limit sign. He really cares about his neighbors. He cares about his employees. I keep hearing a lot of talk about, and I heard earlier in your meeting that that one of your guys' biggest priorities is taking into account the effects on the community. And I keep hearing that there's 450 employees that work there, but it's not just 450 employees. It's 450 employees and their families. We're talking thousands of people here that are part of this community as well, that, you know, and the community well-being of this company is all these employees and all their families as well. I think that needs to be taken into consideration. And there's a lot of misinformation I'm hearing about all these, the last person said there's migrants in all these buildings. No, there's like 450 people that are full-time employees that work at that farm. There's a lot of misconception there. I think that it needs to be taken into consideration that we are part of this community as well, and our well-being is tied to this farm. Lane really cares about this community, he cares about his workers, and he cares about his neighbors. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Public 2223, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. This is Craig Johnson, and my wife and I live in Arcata residents, and we're cannabis business owners as well. We definitely oppose this project on many, many reasons. I want to start with Mr. DeVries stated because of the precarious nature of the cut flower business, he needs a transition to cannabis. Well, I would consider myself quite experienced, I'd say, in cannabis. And Mr. DeVries, you're going to have a heck of a time trying to grow any sort of cannabis in greenhouses in the Arcata bottoms. The amount of humidity and low light situations are going to amount to disaster. So save yourself the time and the energy and reinvest back into your own flower business. Let's also address a lot of the comments that are coming in tonight. They're addressing a cut flower business and practices and the humans that are engaged with that. Mr. DeVries is not operating the cannabis farm that's proposed. He is building this out for lease or for sale. Let's make that clear. This is not his future business or endeavor. He is building this out for lease or for sale. This type of business with the proposed lighting is a dinosaur in an era of regenerative agriculture and regenerative economics and community. Arcata is at the forefront of that with the craft cannabis operations that are already happening and existing in the hills. This meeting tonight is taking away from the time and energy of this planning commission's valuable time to hear multiple licenses that could be approved and start operating immediately. We really, really need to look closely at this. And let's also make note of the energy consumption. We all know Humboldt County winters and Humboldt County fire season when power outages happen. I saw no mention of the generator backup, the diesel containment, all within a tsunami zone. I have this vision of Fukushima when there was overhead view of a tsunami wave coming through and multiple greenhouses just being pummeled by a tsunami wave. Let's really think about this, and it's up to the Planning Commission to deny this permit. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. This will be our last caller, Hummingbud Farms.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi there, my name is Zach Matthew, and I'm a small cannabis farmer in southern Humboldt County. And I just want to say I am opposed to this project in its present form. I believe it should be subject to the same rules that all the other farms have been subject to over the last several years and should be reduced to the size of 8 acres or less. And I think the planning department should close that loophole in the ordinance. And I'll tell you why. I hear what Mr. DeVries has said about, the strife he had at the beginning of last year. That's really unfortunate. And we've all had problems over the last year throughout the pandemic. He should be very thankful he didn't lose his business entirely or it didn't burn completely to the ground in the fires. And I don't think that his story in that regard should be applicable to whether or not this project is approved. As John Ford said in one of the public meetings in Southern Humboldt, when questioned about why he could grant a permit to an applicant out in Edinburgh who is arguably tied to Eastern European organized crime, he said that the planning department is focused on not who applies for the application, but the land in question and whether or not it's being used in accordance with the ordinances. And I believe that this 8 acres is the MH zoning is a loophole because I went to a lot of public meetings and I haven't heard, all I've heard is 8 acres, 8 acres, 8 acres or less. And if it wasn't an omission, a loophole, then I believe they should have, done the public a favor and mentioned to them 8 acres, unless you have MH zoning, then you can go as big as you want. And I would also say that in the bottoms where it's foggy and cold, this will have a carbon footprint problem for the product that they put out. It'd be far more costly to the earth and in dollars to produce. And I didn't hear about sturgeon mentioned in any of the biological studies as the threatened white sturgeon spawns in all the sloughs throughout Arcata. And then I have a hard time believing that the smell can be controlled. I mean, you drive through Eureka and you can smell some of the already permitted sites in downtown Eureka smelling. So that even those small projects cannot be handle their smell. And so that's why I'm opposed to the project. Thank you for your time.
Sorry about that. I was accidentally muting myself. So we're going to stop the public comment for tonight. There's 3 callers left, but we're out of time. And those 3 callers will be the first to speak at the April 1st meeting when this will be continued. So we probably should have a motion to continue this to the April 1st meeting, I would assume, right, John? So I would bring this back to the commission and ask if anybody would like to make a motion to continue this to the April 1st meeting.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brian. I would like to make a motion to continue this to the April 1st meeting, but I would like to make a couple of remarks before we adjourn the meeting, please.
Okay.
And that is, I'm really concerned about the fact that we have so much public interest in this project, and not everyone who wanted to participate via Zoom was able to do so. And so I would like to see if staff can come up with a way to get the word out of alternative ways that folks can address the commission, either making a special point of allowing people to continue to email us their comments during the meeting, or seeing if there's a way that we can enhance Zoom so that more participants can address us, because with this much concern and comments, I don't think it's fair to limit people's ability to participate in the public process. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Staff just told me that they are going to update the capacity before the next meeting of how many people can call in. I don't know exactly how they do that, but that's why we have them to do the special things. So it sounds like they're already on that, but I feel your concerns as well.
Did Brian's motion need a second? And if so, I will be that second.
All right, so we have a motion second to continue this item to the April 1st meeting. Any further discussion on that?
I just wanted to, this is Thomas, I just want to clarify that we, those of us that still have questions out to staff, I don't know what's the appropriate time to ask those questions. If in the meeting right now is the appropriate time, because I still have one of my questions not answered. I just realized, and it's kind of a big one to me.
We will have ample time at the next meeting for the commission to also ask questions. But if you want to ask your question right now.
Well, or the thing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Director. Director had a thought.
Well, or if you want to give us that question, if we haven't answered it, we certainly can and provide that as part of the staff report for the next meeting.
So my biggest question from what I see on the WebGIS is the water is coming from parcel number 505-151-012. From the WebGIS, that parcel is zoned AE and not MH. So if the water is coming from a parcel that is not zoned MH, how MH zoning standards apply, and if this is a new precedent that we're setting, is it okay for parcel zoned AE to take water from parcel zoned TPZ? Because I feel it might be a precedent we're setting if we take water from a differently zoned parcel to another zoned parcel.
We will respond to that in the staff report. Thanks.
Thank you. So we have any other questions before we vote? All right, seeing none, I will ask Laura for a question.
To continue to 4-1, Alan Bongio,
Yes.
Thomas Mulder,
Yes.
Noah Levy,
Yes.
Mike Newman,
Yes.
Peg Neal,
Yes.
Brian Mitchell,
Yeah.
Melanie
Yes.
McCabe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. And with that, unless anybody has anything else they want to bring up, we are adjourned. All right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night. We'll see you in 2 weeks.